Good evening, everyone. Thank you for joining us. I'm Carolyn Rye, Chair of the School Board of the City of Virginia Beach, and I hereby call this meeting to order at 6 p.m. on this first day of December 2020. Pursuant to the state of emergency related to the COVID-19 pandemic, the governor's executive orders, the Virginia Freedom of Information Act as amended by the Virginia General Assembly, and the school board's April 7, 2020 emergency resolution, the school board and selected staff members will meet in person at the school administration building. However, at this time, it's impractical and unsafe to allow other persons to attend the school board meeting due to physical distancing and safety precautions related to the pandemic. Members of the public will be able to observe the school board meeting through live streaming on vbschools.com, broadcast on VBTV Channel 47, and on Zoom. Madam Clerk, would you please announce board members present?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Present in chambers is Chairwoman Rye, Ms. Melnick, Ms. Owens, Ms. Manning, Ms. Felton, Ms. Hughes, Ms. Anderson, Mr. Edwards, Ms. Holtz, Ms. Weems, and Ms. Riggs.
Thank you. And if you would now all join me in a moment of silence. And please stand as you are able for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay, Mrs. Melnick, would you please introduce the Student Employee Public Award and Recognition component of our program?
Tonight, we as a board have the pleasure of recognizing both division staff and students who have been awarded or recognized during state, multi-state, or national competitions or events, or who have achieved something that is above and beyond the scope of regular work performance. In addition, we continue to honor individuals whose awards and recognitions took place since the closure this spring. We appreciate their patience as we work to reinstate the recognitions in a safe manner for all parties. With that in mind, we are pleased to announce the school board recognition recipients for December 2020. Mr. Edwards.
To start off, we have two individuals who were recognized by the Virginia Association for Health, Physical Education, Recreation, and Dance, the VAHPERD, which is the state organization for health and physical education instruction teachers and supervisors. First of the two individuals recognized by that group is Sheila Jones, who is the coordinator of health and physical education with the Department of Teaching and Learning. She has been recognized as the organization's Supervisor of the Year. Sheila has been a central office administrator for the past 17 years in three of the largest school divisions in Virginia. Sheila was selected as a member of the VDOE Continuity of Learning Committee, hosted state-level trainings, and proposed an alternative to fitness testing called Functional Fitness Challenges. Sheila's commitment to designing health and PE best practices in a remote learning environment and her continued support and leadership are a part of the reason that Sheila is the only two-time Supervisor of the Year award winner in VAHPERD history. Congratulations, Sheila Jones.
Also recognized by VAHPERD is Jen Vetter as the Adapted Physical Education Teacher of the Year. Jen currently is an adapted PE teacher at Bayside High School and came to VBCPS as a career switcher after she began coaching track and field at Kellam High School in 2014. She brought with her years of teaching experience at the graduate and undergraduate levels, service as a government contractor, and years of service as a medical service corps officer in the U.S. Army. She also spearheaded the development of Mighty Marlins, which is the first united track and field team in the beach. In partnership with Special Olympics Virginia, this inclusive team brings students with and without differing abilities together. As a result, Bayside High received national recognition as a unified champion school from the Special Olympics this past August. Bayside is the only school in Virginia Beach and one of 8 schools in the state of Virginia to receive this honor. Jen's lessons extend beyond the gym and classroom, and she ensures all her students with special needs learn skills such as hands-only CPR, basic first aid, as well as ways to stay fit and healthy. Congratulations, Ms. Vetter.
Next up is the Ocean Lakes High School gymnastics team. In February 2020, this team earned their first ever championship title. They have competed previously, winning 4th, 3rd, and 2nd places, but this was their first time winning the state championship. This is also the first state championship title won by any female sports team at Ocean Lakes High School. Congratulations to the entire team. Job well done.
In addition to the Ocean Lakes team win, Brooke Gunter also took home 2 individual state champion wins in vault and bars. Brooke was a freshman during the 2019-2020 school year when she won these state awards and is also a student in the Math and Science Academy. Brooke began training as a young child and currently practices at Gym Strata. Congratulations, Brooke.
Virginia Beach had 2 wrestling state champions in 2020. Bryce Sanderlin, a 2020 graduate of Lansdowne High School, is the first. Bryce has a history of wrestling wins and accolades, but this past February 22nd, Bryce won the Virginia High School League's Group 6 State Wrestling Championship for the 160-pound class. Not only was this a state win, but this achievement made him Lansdowne High School's first ever 2-time state wrestling champion. Bryce finished the season with a 43-1 overall record. Tommy Baldwin also was a state champion and will be providing more information about his championship at the next meeting. Congratulations both to Bryce and Tommy.
This concludes the recognitions for this month. Again, congratulations to everyone who was recognized this evening. Madam Chair?
Thank you all. Right, that leads to adoption of tonight's agenda. Motion to approve. Mrs. Riggs, second. Mrs. Hughes, discussion? Okay, with that, all in favor, show with a raise of your hand, please.
Madam Chair, we have a unanimous vote.
Thank you. And now that brings us to Dr. Spence, and we look forward to your superintendent report.
Thank you, and good evening, Madam Chairwoman and members of the board. Here are just a few items of interest for you and for our families to know here in the month of December. First up, in conjunction with the Military Family Appreciation Month, which is celebrated every November, VB Schools, William & Mary, and McCoot Industries Incorporated have partnered and launched the Military Assistance Portal, or MAP, app designed to provide military families across Hampton Roads with access to social, emotional, and educational supports. As part of a $1.5 million grant, VBCPS collaborated with William & Mary and other military-connected personnel to develop the VBCPS Globally Resilient Innovative Thinkers, or GRIT Resource Guide, which is a comprehensive resource to serve our military-affiliated families in both VBCPS and our surrounding communities. With help from these partnerships and also from 2 students who attended the Advanced Technology Center, this GRIT Guide was transformed into an app. Congratulations to Natalie Meggs, our coordinator of military connected and academic support programs, for leading this team. So that you know, the MAP app is available at no charge for the iPhone and iPad via the Apple App Store and for Android devices via the Google Store. And if you're interested in getting the app and need help using it, a tutorial is available on the VB Schools YouTube channel. Next up, VB Schools, through the Department of Technology, was recognized by MCCI, which is a technology service company, as one of only 7 organizations across the country honored with an Excellence Award, which is awarded to those organizations that exhibit innovative strategies for process or technology challenges. With the work from DOT, VB Schools was recognized for eliminating paper from the business processes by implementing Laserfiche as our content services solution. And furthermore, by engaging in the digital transformation process, we were able to create streamlined workflows for many of our departments, including human resources, accounts payable, travel and reimbursement, school leadership, and risk management. So congratulations to Chief Information Officer David Dent and his team. Thank you all for your hard work, especially during this pandemic when we are relying so much on technology for all that we do. And last but certainly not the least, congratulations to Marge Moore, who has been nominated by the Virginia Department of Education as one of only 2 Virginia candidates to go forward for the first ever Recognizing Inspirational School Employees Award, also known as the RISE Award. This award was created by Congress to honor classified school employees who provide exemplary service to students and to their communities. Marge was nominated for her remarkable service to the school division as a bus driver. In her 49 years with the school division, Marge has not missed a day of work.
Oh my God.
She knows the names of all of the office staff at her school, as well as all of the students and parents. She also knows all the dogs and horses in her neighborhood and delivers them treats. Her cleaning regimen is legendary amongst the transportation team, mopping her bus floors every day and washing the outside of her bus every week, and even hand waxing her bus every month. In fact, she's so dedicated to getting her students to school that one winter she even used a hairdryer to thaw out a frozen gear shift. With that said, let's watch a short nomination video now.
Hello, I'm David Pace, and I'm the Executive Director for Transportation and Fleet Management Services for the Virginia Beach City Public Schools. And we want to tell you about someone very special today to the school division and to the children in Virginia Beach.
She's been a bus driver for 48 accident-free years, and she's never taken a day off.
She is the cleanest bus in the fleet. She mops the floors daily and waxes it by hand monthly.
She is amazing. In the winter, she uses a blow dryer to thaw out her transmission to be on time.
She meticulously cares for every single student in our community.
She got me to and from school each day safely and does the same for my daughter. But there is no monkey business on that bus, right?
I'm Aaron Spence, Superintendent of Virginia Beach City Public Schools, and I am incredibly proud to be nominating Marge Moore for the RISE Award because she literally goes the extra mile to make sure our students are safe and to make sure that they are successful every day. Thank you for your service to our families and the children of this community.
That's awesome.
So I know you all would join me in rooting for Mrs. Moore in this competition. And I know you'll join me also in thanking her for everything that she does for all of our students. Thank you, Madam Chair. That concludes my report.
Thank you, Dr. Spence. So now approval of the meeting minutes from the November 10th, 2020 regular school board meeting. Any modifications? Okay. Motion to approve, Mrs. Anderson, and a second, Mr. Edwards. Please show your approval with a raise of hand.
Madam Chair, we have a unanimous vote.
Thank you. All right, agenda item 9, hearing of citizens and delegations on agenda items. The school board will now hear comments on agenda items from citizens and delegations who signed up with our clerk prior to this meeting. In-person speakers will be called first, followed by speakers participating through Zoom or by telephone. It's not necessary for Zoom speakers to ask if they can be heard. Speakers should begin speaking once their name is called. As a reminder, each speaker has 4 minutes to present and will be given a 30-second warning before time expires. Once time has expired, the speaker should stop making remarks and the next speaker will be queued to speak. Please keep in mind the school board invites the public to also submit comments through our group email account, which can be found on our website. So with that, Madam Clerk, would you please introduce our first speaker of the evening?
Our first speaker is Denise Willert.
And welcome.
Good evening. Thank you for having me. And thanks to everyone also for your kind replies. I've written you several times and I appreciate it every time when you do reply. Thank you. I spoke last month and I spoke from a personal perspective about my own children, but today I'd like to take a little bit of a broader perspective. I'd like to start by saying we may agree that this virus has been politicized. We might also agree that the teachers' union has an agenda. But I think we can all definitely agree that recent testimony from health experts across the U.S. have said that children believe and need to be back in school. Those directors are the CDC director, Dr. Robert Redfield, Dr. Anthony Fauci, just as recently as last week, Dr. Scott Atlas, and numerous pediatricians across the country who have said that they would send their own children back to school during this pandemic. Several facts that you may or may not be aware of. This closure has affected approximately 60 million children in the U.S. In Fairfax, Virginia, they're seeing an approximate 83% increase in failing grades among their students. Deaths under age 18 in New Jersey have been 0, California 2, and across the U.S. approximately 123. On a more positive note, the survival rate for teachers under age 50 is approximately 99.98%, and for teachers under age 70, approximately 99.5%. None of us are stating that this is not a serious issue, but it's all about risk management, as I think we're aware. We've known since May that children are not the drivers of transmission of this virus. And I really beg of you, we cannot lock our children down because of politics and fear and because of the metrics that we may have set in place earlier this year. I think we need to look at new information and make new decisions. My neighbors and I love our children as you love our children, and we pay taxes to this school system. And all we're asking for and all we would appreciate from you, please, is a choice. Let those of us who would like to come back to school, come back to school. And those who are not comfortable can remain virtual. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Our next speaker is Matthias Paul Telkamp.
Welcome.
Thank you. Thank you to the board and Dr. Spence. I'm speaking this evening because once again there is a growing concern regarding bringing back teachers and students face-to-face. Numbers are rising, especially in Virginia Beach and Chesapeake, where students and teachers have been forced to return in person, regardless of CDC guidelines and clear evidence that doing so puts exponential number of people at risk. I have heard from and read the comments of hundreds of teachers, parents, staff, and students who have expressed fear and dismay at the way Dr. Spence, the VBCPS administration, and certain school board members have shown an eagerness to get back to normal, regardless of the cost. Thousands of surveys that have been responded to and hundreds of concerned citizens have spoken endlessly at these meetings and have been summarily ignored. I'm not even sure why we even bother, because it becomes more and more clear that decisions are made ahead of time, behind closed doors, and this is just a forum as a theater to make us feel as though you are actually listening when clearly you are not. Governor Northam has issued new rules and regulations that limit gatherings to 25 or fewer people, but this does not apply to our schools. In these very meetings, you require people that take precautions, wear masks, keep at least 6 feet apart from one another, and limit the number of people that can be in the room with you. But this does not apply to our schools. According to the VB Public Library website, due to the increased COVID-19 transmission rates, public libraries are closed except for drive-through services. The Parks and Rec Centers have closed the child care facilities and limit any activity to 22 people or less. The courts have closed for more than a week due to only 4 positive COVID-19 cases, but none of this applies to our schools, and it definitely does not apply to our school buses. Family members have tested positive with COVID-19, but their children are not required to be tested. Contact tracing is inconsistent and minimal. Reporting of cases was a long time coming and does not reflect the number of actual cases. The constant changes in requirements and rules and inconsistency, lack of transparency are shameful. And we have one of the biggest school systems in the state, and we have done the poorest job of protecting our students, staff, and teachers. I would like to know why that is. Where is the pressure coming from that has caused you to make choices that wreak havoc, create a toxic work environment, and give little to no support to teachers, staff, and students? Where's the leadership? We all know the myth of Icarus, who in an act of hubris, he flew too close to the sun and fell to his death. Instead of a consistent, effective, and streamlined plan with appropriate preparation and training throughout the summer months, the administration chose to haphazardly forge ahead and create the chaos that we have all been dealing with for the last 6 months. Why do we have to beg you not to fly too close to the sun and instead take a safer path? I pray that you can do a better job of properly representing those who matter, the teachers, parents, staff, and students.
30
in the
seconds.
Year, and that compassion, not hubris, is the guiding force behind your choices. I'll be following up with phone calls and emails to each of you to get answers to my questions, to give feedback and recommendations, and to open a dialogue in hopes of finding better solutions. Tonight, I ask for compassion from our leaders and representatives by asking for a motion to keep all students virtual for the rest of the semester. Then take the time between now and next semester to reassess and come up with a new plan
And that is
better
time.
reflects all needs involved. Do you have the courage for that motion? Thank you.
Thank you.
Our next speaker is Daniela Seifert.
Welcome.
Hi, thank you. Thanks for the opportunity to be here. Unfortunately, not many of us knew about this to be able to speak, so I just hope you know that the 50 that are signed up to speak are not really a representative, a real number of how many people would actually be here. You know the statistics already. I'm not going to bore you with the same information that everyone else has given you, but I'm going to tell you a story, and maybe you'll think a little bit deeper about these kids being in school. I grew up in Queens, New York, immigrant parents, didn't go to school, and they pushed education on me like it was their job. They didn't have an education. They're probably two of the smartest people I ever met in my life. They have more common sense than most people I know. And I struggled to get through a school, moved from Queens, New York, where kids either killed each other, were in jail, or are dead right now, to Long Island. And I ended up getting a really great education. These kids need to be in school. It's sad. My son is lucky enough to have the support from his mom and dad, but most of the kids that aren't in school are the ones that are affected. They're going to end up in jails one day. We cannot have this happen. This has been 8 months of them suffering. Maybe my son's not suffering as much as a kid next to him in class, but they're all suffering in their own way. COVID is not as scary as the mental abuse that's going on, the physical abuse at home possibly. We don't even know what's happening in these homes. Teachers don't even know what's happening in these homes because they can't see their students. They don't know if they're being abused. They don't know if they're being hospitalized. This is not about COVID. This virus, we know how it spreads. It doesn't spread like this with a mask on. These kids would wear 2 masks if they had to and stay 12 feet apart just to be in front of their teachers. I pulled my kids out of school in May of 2020. As soon as I heard, because honestly, I question the board. I don't question the teachers. I don't question the parents or the staff. I think we know how to be responsible with the virus. This isn't the first virus that we've had. It's a serious one, but we know how to be responsible. So why aren't they going back to class? This is something that's going to hit them long-term. You heard the statistics already. I'm sure the CDC, the World Health Organization are all supporting kids being in class. I really want you to reconsider this because it will affect our children in so many ways. I mean, the crime rates will go up. I mean, I don't want kids coming into my neighborhood because they have nothing to do all day. They're losing hope. They're losing hope by looking at their teachers virtually. They're disengaged. It's sad. It's like the elderly in nursing homes are dying of loneliness because they're losing hope that someone's going to visit them. We can't do this to our kids. The parents are affected. They have to go to work and their kids at home learning virtually. I mean, if any of you have children in school, you know what this is about. The ones that have kids graduated, good for you. You're lucky. You're the lucky ones. But we're not. And so the 50 that are speaking tonight, please don't think that's the number of parents that are upset about this. It's really sad. So I appreciate your time, and I really would like if you can just think deeper than COVID, because it's not about COVID. It's this control, and in the end, we're not going to win. This virus isn't going anywhere. So I appreciate your time. Thank you.
Thank you.
Our next speaker is Vanessa Beasley.
Welcome.
Hi, how are you? All right, hello to the board. Thank you for allowing me to speak. I will not make this personal, since you guys have heard nothing but personal stories in the past several months, and those stories have made no difference. I have 2 out of 3 children who are struggling this year. A lot of kids are struggling. Closing schools due to a virus is the biggest public health blunder in American history. Let's talk about statistics. Yes, COVID deaths are up this year, but overall deaths have actually decreased. If a cardiac patient has died of a heart attack and has COVID, they died of COVID. The numbers are all skewed. We need to figure this out. Our kids are suffering. My daughter is depressed. She has lack of motivation. She's not learning virtually. How can she be motivated if the classes are also pre-recorded? She can't learn geometry when there's no teacher that's live to ask questions. All her teachers have basically been all recorded. And she's failing. She's failing all of her classes. She can't ask questions. After we got the horrific news last week that the kids would not be returning to the class, when she was so excited to actually go to school and see her friends after 8 months and be with teachers and learn, she was immediately heartbroken. Her screams and cries were too much. I tried to enroll her in a private school to be face-to-face, but because of the 4x4 instruction, she is considered way behind. My honor roll student is now considered behind. She is failing 3 out of 4 classes. Let's be honest, we are so far from behind from spring, they are never going to catch up. How can private schools be open? My middle's in private, and we put him in private because he begged us in the spring because he couldn't do this anymore. So we put him there, and he's happy. I get an email at least once a week from the school saying, there's been a case in your son's class. Guess what? They don't close the school down. They just say watch for symptoms. If your kid's sick, they stay home.
I'm sorry, could you just raise your mask? We try to be consistent about that. Thank you.
Yeah, sure. So, if a private school is doing okay and preschools are doing okay, then why can't we maybe go ask how they're doing it? How's Chesapeake doing it? How are they keeping their teachers and students safe? Okay? Virginia Beach has the biggest of students in our area, and the COVID numbers are not higher than other cities. Let the parents who are not comfortable sending their kids stay home, but let the kids and the teachers who want to be face-to-face have a choice. Going to school is vital for these kids. They get their meals, their physical activity, health care, and their education and socialization. Spence, you're on record saying that COVID-19 is not being spread in our schools, so why did you close them down? 3,000 students have left Virginia Beach schools. We have to learn how to be safe, yet keep kids and teachers in schools. Have we ever survived with the virus this long? Even Fauci is saying kids need to be in school. If you don't want to teach and don't care about the best interest of our children, then get a new job and let our teachers, many of them, be outstanding and let them teach. Schools aren't breeding grounds for COVID. The community is. Bars, restaurants, gyms, heck, strip bars are open. Grocery stores. Scared to teach kids? There are other professions that you could do. Because for adults, teaching is optional, but for kids, learning is essential.
30 seconds.
And I just want to say one more thing. I have a hair salon, and I teach classes at a gym. Over the summer, I asked all of my gym members who are teachers if they were excited to come back to school. And they said, no, I really want to teach from my home. And I said, well, why? And they said, well, the virus is scary. And I said, well, then why are you in a full spin class at the gym? Okay, thank you.
Our next speaker is Colleen Clemenson.
Welcome.
Good evening. Normally, I would thank the members of the board and Dr. Spence for allowing me to come speak, but I shouldn't be here. I shouldn't have to be here to fight for the basic right of all children, especially for those in special education, to receive an appropriate education within the classroom walls. I have learned that a member of the school board was not happy with the district's decision to send those students level 2 and above back into the classroom today and wants all students to be virtual because it is dangerous for staff. However, data from the CDC reports that for teachers under the age of 50, the odds of surviving a coronavirus infection are roughly 99.98%. For teachers under 70, the survival rate is 99.5%. The number of students who return today make up just, ready for this, 1.88% of this total student population of the district, and I can see how dangerous that 1% could be to anyone. The director of the CDC came out on November 19th and stated that COVID was not transmitted at schools, but in the community. So by that logic, even if a student of special ed is not masked due to sensory processing disorder or other physical issues, the adult who is masked should still be safe. The CDC has never recommended school closures. In fact, both Dr. Redford and Dr. Fauci are on record saying that kids should be in school. This individual refuses to follow the science and instead chooses to promote fear. It is obvious to me that this person has never had a child with educational or special needs, nor has taught a child with educational or special needs. If any of you sitting before me had a child who has an IEP or a 504 during this virtual learning, your views would be very different. This decision to want to return special education students virtually is probably supported by many in this room and in the district, and it shows me that special education is still considered a dirty word here, and our students with 504s, IEPs, or in special programs are not valued. There is no effective way for me to turn my home into the educational environment that my son needs. My son is in the 6th grade and in the STEPS program, and virtual for him has not been successful. For example, last week during his math session, he began to become very frustrated with an assignment that he was having trouble understanding. Even though both his virtual aide and teacher were doing everything in their power from the screen to calm him down and help him, nothing worked. He ended up screaming and slamming his Chromebook shut. When I went to find him, he was on the couch hyperventilating, saying over and over when he could catch his breath at how he hates this. Put yourself in my shoes. How would that make you feel as a parent? And this was just one of many instances. Virtual learning is not effective for all students. There are some who are thriving, but for the majority of students, especially those in special education, virtual is a detriment. A report came out that stated that nationwide, students in special ed that are failing 2 or more classes are up 100%. Chesapeake schools are allowing in-person to happen for those who chose it because they require parents to confirm fever and symptom-free daily and track transmissions, and just like the CDC, found that COVID is not acquired at schools. Schools in California and private schools are able to have in-school instruction by taking temperatures of their students every day. It is mind-boggling that a district that prides itself as being ahead of the curve cannot find a way to make in-person learning a reality. When we arrived in June, the district had said that those who wanted to go virtual would go virtual, and those who wanted face-to-face would go face-to-face. What happened? Is it because of the metrics? The district cannot go by the metrics it set months ago. It must evolve as the virus does. Yes, we are in the red, but how many people are sick? On June 13th, 2020, The Guardian reported that 5 students from Kent, England, who were diagnosed with both ADHD and autism had committed
30 seconds.
had committed suicide due to the non-structure of not being at school. Some teachers who are supporters of the VBA and who choose to keep schools closed have said that they don't want to risk bringing COVID into a home that their conscience wouldn't be able to take it. But I asked them, when the reports of attempted and successful suicides by students in this district start becoming a reality, how will your conscience feel then? Thank you.
Our next speaker is Tracy Ligwood.
Welcome.
Thank you. Thank you all for your service at this time. I say it every time, but it is, you guys are bearing an incredible load that I can't imagine what it would be like to sleep. Okay. So I am a permanent sub that supports the special ed program at one of the elementary schools. And because of my experience there, I think I've mentioned it, but will be my third career. You know, I love special ed. I love working with kids at this time, at the most critical time. And I agree with the last parent. You know, we should make in-person learning possible. It was a great day. You know, I love seeing the kids. The kids love seeing all of us, the staff. You know, there's camaraderie. You feel the energy. But the kids don't know what's going on. I guess some of us who follow the science do. People have reached out to me, special ed colleagues, not necessarily at my school, but people that I don't even know, but they know that I speak at these meetings. They're afraid. They're dismayed, like the second speaker said. Special ed kids, most of them cannot mask. Even if they don't have an exemption, spend 5 minutes. I was in class for 1 minute. I was already conscious to distance, 3 to 6 feet, ideally. In my mind, I was preparing how I should handle my work because I love the work. We all do, the SPED staff. Within 1 minute, one of the children needed to be soothed. He was already overstimulated, I'm sure, because he's been, you know, at home for the last 2 weeks. You know, you rub his back to calm him. You can't do, you know, maybe it's me, maybe my arms are too short, but another SPED CSAP teacher told me, you know, the same thing. We feel the same way. We love the work. But she has to be close to her students, otherwise they will run. There are runners. You know, other schools, I think at Parkway Elementary, they call them elopers. That's a reality that parents whose our general population children don't get it. People are afraid. This is an aerosolated virus. Children are passing it on. In the largest study that covered 500,000 people in India, 6% of the infections were children and young adults. But of that 6%, they spread it to 60% of the population. This is the largest study done, and
30 seconds.
I don't know. We need to improve our schools. We need to have a better virtual learning environment. We need to address our ventilation system. In the meantime, before the overhaul, we need to have air purifiers that doctors' offices, airlines do. You know, be creative. Partner with an agency that can do it. Be creative. Be ahead of the curve. We're already far behind the curve.
And that is time.
Thank you for your time and your service.
Thank you.
Our next speaker is Jeremy Domawisk.
Good evening.
Welcome.
Thank you for having me this evening. You know, I wasn't originally going to speak. I wasn't sure, quite honestly, if y'all would really listen or not. But my wife encouraged me that as our duly elected officials and the ultimate keepers of our children's education, that you would listen. And so here I am. We've got 3 kids, a daughter in 6th grade, a daughter in 2nd grade, and then there's our son Jack. He's in the special education preschool program. He went back to school today, thankfully. And I really need you to hear me when I say that Jack needs to stay in face-to-face education. All right, for him and the other special education kids, having virtual school might as well be no school. They cannot learn that way. All right, and you know, my son's teachers are fantastic. They do everything that they can to try to keep him engaged virtually when they have to. I mean, they're excellent. But, you know, we get the iPad or the tablet on and for the Zoom meeting or the Google Meet, and, you know, he sees his teacher, and 30, 45 seconds later, if we're lucky, he's out of there. He doesn't want to deal with it. He's throwing a fit, a tantrum. He's getting upset. He can't deal with that. If that thing's not playing Baby Shark or Wheels on the Bus, he doesn't care. All right? But when he's in class, his teacher reports doing the same activities they're trying to do virtually. They report that he's engaged, he's participating, he's learning. All right? He needs to be in school. Regardless of whatever you do with the other kids, the special education kids need to stay in school. They need to be face to face. My son not only, gets education, he gets physical therapy through the school. He gets occupational therapy through the school. You can't do that over a tablet, over a Zoom meeting. All right, and let's speak about the other kids just for a brief moment. You know, when we talk about these, the numbers and the metrics, I understand that those were put in place over the summer at a time when we didn't have the information that we have today. But as many people have already talked about, the information's changing. It's showing that the kids can be back in school. And frankly, our own experience here in Virginia Beach has been shown that the kids can do so safely. All right, I looked at the numbers on the dashboard this morning. There was like 100 cases in the schools, and it sounds like a scary number. Oh my gosh, 100 cases. Out of all the schools, the buses, the administrative buildings, there's like 100 cases. All right, and there's maybe a dozen that have more than one, which means it's not being transmitted through the schools, which means that the protective measures that the superintendent has put into place are working. The social distancing, the one kid per seat on the bus, the masks, it's working and it's effective. So there's no reason that we can't keep at least those youngest kids, those elementary schoolers, the ones that this affects the most, there's no reason we can't keep them in school. And I think what we need to do is take a step back, stop looking so much at the metrics outside, out there, all right, and look what's going on in the buildings themselves. And sure, if there's an outbreak in one of the schools, then shut that school down if you need to. All right, that's what other places
30
are doing.
seconds.
And so in closing, I just want to say that you guys have a lot more power, I think, than you think today to change a life. All right, by your vote. These special education kids, when they miss school like this, it does irreparable harm to their long-term education. And so we need you to make sure that those kids stay in school. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Our next speaker is Bill Duke.
Hello, everybody.
Welcome.
Thank you. I'm Dr. William L. Duke. I'm a former university professor and a resident of Virginia Beach, and I'm happy to be here to talk to you about Ms. Manning's proposal. And thank you for your time. I'll be brief. She has written a very fine proposal which lays out the conditions and provisions for returning children to school, and I fully support it. And I should also mention that I'm the vice chair of the Tidewater Libertarian Party, and I think I could speak for perhaps all, certainly a majority of my fellow Tidewater Libertarians to say that we all like this proposal very much and think the children should be going back to school. Now, I don't have very much to add to what the other speakers have been saying to you, but perhaps I could add one little thing, and that is a sort of a political perspective, all right? I think it's sad that something like this actually is politically sensitive, that, but it seems that certain views would say that it's best to keep the children away from school. It seems to be a more of a left-leaning sort of thing, and right-wingers, the people who are into personal sovereignty and what have you, a lot like the libertarians, are eager to go back to school. I I hope that none of you, however you decide, would decide because of a political persuasion, but instead would decide based on what we're supposed to be thinking about a lot, the science, all right? And as she puts in the proposal, the science is well-founded for returning children to K through 12 to in-person education. Two things to think about. One is how long back, how far back will our children have to go to overcome this slide associated with being apart from their teachers. And the other thing is, if you should decide to keep all the students on the virtual learning program, which seems not to be entirely effective, then we'll be able to compare the outcome to the people right next door to us in Chesapeake. And I hate to think that we'd be on the losing end of that. That's all I have to say. Thank you very much. Good luck. I don't envy you making this decision.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Our next speaker is Susan Gensler.
Welcome.
Thank you. Thank you for allowing me to speak. My name is Susan Gensler. I have 3 children in the Virginia Beach City Public Schools, and I'm here tonight to ask you to return our children to school. I've watched my children struggle through the virtual learning process, and the virtual learning instruction is subpar. And in some instances, our children are being forced to teach themselves, and we're being required to hire private tutors in order to help them keep up with their assignments and learn. I worry that our students will not be competitive due to this lack of learning in the virtual environment. In addition to my concern about the education my children are receiving virtually, I'm also concerned about the social and mental toll this way of learning is having on our children. Many students have spent the last 3 months of this school year and the last 3 months of the last school year held up in their rooms. Many struggle to even get out of bed or shower. This is not a sign of mental stability. In addition, these kids are lacking any social interaction, which is detrimental to their social growth. We want our children to grow into well-adjusted social individuals that are capable of holding adult conversations, and this will not happen under these conditions. The stress and anxiety that is being brought on by our students having to teach themselves and the lack of social interaction has taken a toll on our students. The CDC has reported that emergency department visits for middle and high school age students has increased 31% for reasons of anxiety and depression. The suicide rate has increased as well. In Virginia Beach, we have lost more teens this year from suicide than from COVID. Just this past Sunday, Dr. Anthony Fauci, the director of the National Institute of Allergy and Infectious Disease and an advisor during the coronavirus pandemic, made a statement on ABC's show This Week regarding the need for children to be in school and to get them back to school. Dr. Fauci stated, "The default position should be to try as best as possible within reason to keep the children in school, to get them back to school. If you look at the data, the spread among children and from children is not very big at all, not like we would have suspected. So let's try to get these kids back to school. Please do what's right for our students and get them back to school." The one other thing I'd like to mention is that we were given an option to be face-to-face. And I don't know why the people that have chosen face-to-face learning are not being allowed to have that option. Thank you.
Thank you.
Our next speaker is Maura Baker.
Welcome.
Hello and good evening, Virginia Beach School Board. My name is Maura Baker, a sophomore at Kelham High School, and I have returned to speak up about allowing us, the students, to go back to in-person learning and the issue that virtual schooling is causing. The biggest thing that I would like to address is how lazy and unmotivated we've become. Our work ethic is becoming messy, lazy, and unmotivated. I speak from me and others that our mornings used to consist of us getting ready, using personal self-care, getting dressed, but now it's replaced with us, the students, rolling out of bed 5 minutes before class starts and sitting there in class in our sleepwear. Instead of studying, students also use their phones or skip assignments that the teachers post that day. So many students are now changing to virtual is because they don't want to give up their routine of sleeping in and wearing pajamas for the whole school day. Us, the students, are getting extremely lazy, and this is going to greatly impact our future. It's teaching us that we can laze about and not be prepared for anything. And what is stopping us from going on our phones or TVs or doing last-minute chores even when our cameras are on? If we were in a learning environment, we wouldn't be distracted since we have to pay attention to the teacher. Another thing I'd also like to speak out about is the stress and anxiety that comes from virtual classes and learning. As we all know, and it's very clear, that Wi-Fi can be slow or ClassLink isn't working, but nothing is scarier for a hardworking student to miss a class that they needed to be in. A recorded video where they cannot ask the teacher right away for help does little to no help. Assignments without the teacher's clear guidance provides to be stressful and heavy to most of the students. I hope my point was taken in as we, the students, wish to go back to our school buildings before virtual learning vastly affects us mentally and physically. Thank you for your time and enjoy the holidays.
Thank you.
Our next speaker is Sean Baker.
Welcome.
Good evening. My name is Sean Baker, and I'm a freshman at Kellam High School, and I am all for going back face-to-face. My first reason I think we should go back face-to-face is, I feel like many teachers had a unique style of teaching that involved hands-on lessons, like using whiteboards or touching things in the classroom, but that was all stripped away from them this year, and they can't do nearly the same thing through the computer screen. And many teachers also can't teach as well because the students are distracted. They have their phones, TVs, pets. They're just not 100% focused on the lesson plan like they would be in the classroom. Then there's the whole nother issue of technical problems. Your computer might not be working, your Wi-Fi might be down, a printer might not be working, and this all rings back to the same point of you might be missing work, causing your grades to go down. Another point is I feel like freshmen, like myself, were neglected this year and not really looked upon. Sixth graders were focused upon, elementary schools were focused upon, but I feel like the shift from middle school to high school is one of the biggest shifts in school life. That's all. Thank you for your time.
Great. Thank you.
Our next speaker is Rory Baker.
Hello.
Hi, my name is Rory Baker. I am 9 years old and I am in 4th grade. I would like to return back to school as soon as possible. I told my mom that if we went back virtual, I would need her to grab my booster seat from the garage and strap me into it. Well, we're virtual again, and I don't like it. Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Our next speaker is Stephanie Baker.
Welcome, Mom.
Thank you. Thank you for your time this evening. My name is Stephanie Baker, and you've just heard from my 3 children. My job is to best advocate for them, as their voices so far have fallen on deaf ears. Try not to get emotional. All 3 have chosen face-to-face with the knowledge that they could return to virtual. But I stand before you dumbfounded, angry, and sad. You are listening to the minority and not the majority of students and staff who want to return face-to-face. You are listening to the voices of teachers who have asked me personally and said, how would you feel if your child gave a teacher COVID and died? These same teachers have also traveled for the Thanksgiving holiday season. So I have a hard time answering that question for them. Virtual learning is not for all. I ask that you take a look at the numbers again to only include Virginia Beach and exclude numbers from jails and nursing homes, not in the general population, to put in the general population. To please create a sustainable virtual program for those immune compromised or unwilling, sorry, my notes are all over the place, unwilling to return because of the spread of the virus. And then create a plan for students who want to return face-to-face immediately. Successful programs have been set up in Florida, Utah, Indiana. There have been no deaths in Pensacola, Florida of teachers or students. They've been in class since August. And my son's travel soccer team is a great example of social distancing with a full contact sport. He has played teams from Northern Virginia, Richmond, Fredericksburg, Southeastern Virginia. Not one child nor one parent has gotten COVID or on those teams. If we as parents can sign waivers for our children to attend sports, why can't we sign a waiver for our children to return face-to-face? I lost my train of thought. If we cannot get a waiver, if we sign a waiver for my child to take pictures, why can't we sign a waiver for my child to return to school? Thank you guys for your time. I appreciate it, and for listening to myself and my children. And I would really like to see my kids get back to school face to face. They need it. Thank you.
Thank you.
Our next speaker is Robert Abley.
Welcome.
Thank you. Good evening, everybody. What a great bunch of speakers this evening. Is that okay? Okay. My name is Robert Evely. I'm a 32-year resident of the city of Virginia Beach. And you have tonight before you a motion to put the students back into school. And I support the motion unconditionally. I appeared before you back in July to advocate for the return to school. I'm here again to ask you to get our children back into school in even stronger terms. I watched as one of my children has been in school continuously since March, and he has continued to progress and develop in obvious ways. In contrast, my 11th grader, who's a BBCPS student, has now missed 5.5 months of instruction. Last saw a classroom 8 months ago. And that's right, 8 months. Add it up, write it down, think about it. 8 months for a 16-year-old not in school. And despite the excellent efforts that her teachers have made, the difference in her personal development over these last 8 months is dramatic compared to my son. In July, I asked each of you to read a very short document published by the CDC. It's entitled, "The Importance of Reopening America's Schools by this Fall." That short document has made it abundantly clear that keeping children out of school is dangerous. And now, there's growing evidence that those dangers have affected our children, and now it's time to act. Medical science tells us our children need to be in school. Science tells us that. Parents are saying that their children need to be in school. You've heard from them this evening. So where can we come up with a decision tonight to vote no? How can we come up with a decision to vote no? And tell them both, medical science and parents, that they don't know what they're talking about. Tonight, just as in July, parents are ready, willing, and able to send their children to school. Teachers are ready, willing, and able to teach. Pediatricians are telling us the children need to be in school. Let's get on with it. The mission statement of our school system begins with 3 words. You all know what they are. Put students first. You have an opportunity to do just that tonight. Rise to the occasion. Stand up. Move forward. Reject those who ask you to act out of fear rather than based on facts. Let me close with a quote from a famous U.S. president who said, in another very difficult period, "The only thing we have to fear is fear itself. Nameless, unreasoning, unjustified terror, which paralyzes needed efforts for us to convert retreat into an advance." Vote yes. Vote yes. Vote yes. Thank you.
Thank you.
Our next speaker is Scott Lowton.
Welcome.
Hi, how's it going? As you can see, I don't have a piece of paper in front of me. I didn't do any research. I didn't come here with facts that are pulled completely out of context. I came here this evening to speak from my heart. As much as I want my children back in school, I want you guys more to follow the plan that you put in place. This back and forth. Just follow the plan. When we get to the metrics that was decided on at some certain point, then let's bring them back. I'm fine with that. Believe me, I want my children back. My daughter has an E right now. She went from an A to an E because she's back home. We started off virtual. She had a D, went to school, she got an A. Now she's got an E. I know the difficulties. I know how involved I must be. We as parents must be more involved with our children's life during this time. Does it suck? Yeah, it really does suck. But follow the plan that you put in place. Obviously, there was no plan on developing this curriculum to be able to work with all the students that we have. Did anybody ever look into subscribing to Udemy or any of these other programs out there? Because here's some facts that I don't need any context for. The teaching of the English language has not changed in 200 years. Algebra has not changed in the last 100 years. None of these subjects have changed. We have pre-recorded materials you guys could have had subscriptions to that children could log on to at their convenience. If the internet's down, okay, we're not going to mark you absent. Just prove that you went and you reviewed this course and took a test. There's other means that were never explored. You want to help out the kids that are high risk or something? Do pilot programs. You don't have to buy every student a Udemy account or something, but pilot it for those that are at risk. Try other ways. Stick to a plan. Have a pilot program. That's all I ask. If you go back, fine. If you don't, I'm fine with that too. But stick to your plan. Follow it through. Have well-designed thoughts and follow through with it. Please. That's all.
Thank you.
Our next speaker is Ben Frickenshire.
Welcome.
Thank you. Good evening. My name is Dr. Ben Fickenshire. I'm a father and an emergency medicine physician. As a father, I am seeing firsthand the negative impacts that social isolation and lack of in-person learning are having on our young public school students. Sadly, despite our wonderful teachers' best efforts, our children are receiving a second-rate education. My experience as an emergency medicine physician reflects what the science and data continue to tell us, that those over 64 and those with identifiable risk factors are at significant risk for hospitalization from this virus, yet the risk to our young and healthy is very low. To put it into perspective, the cumulative rate of hospitalization for those aged 4 through 17 is lower for COVID-19 than it was for the same age cohort for the 2017 flu season. I have witnessed a drastic increase in the number of young people coming into the emergency department with anxiety, depression, suicidal thoughts, risky social behaviors, and drug and alcohol abuse. To date, the nation has experienced a rise in mental health visits to the ED by pediatric patients of nearly 30%. I am afraid that our current strategy is contributing to the childhood mental health disorders, is negatively impacting our children's social development, and is eroding the quality of the education being delivered by our public schools. In short, I do not believe that it is living up to the mission of putting our students first. While some speak of waiting until it is completely safe to return, I firmly believe that it is not safe to delay any longer. The widening of socioeconomic disparity, the threat of hunger and abuse, the lack of social learning and positive peer and teacher influence, and the increasing despair in our children are all very real threats. These are wounds that have real long-term societal consequences. With each passing day, I fear that our isolation that is intended as a cure is becoming worse than the disease itself. The guiding principle of population health is to do the most good for the greatest number of people. I believe the science supports that a return to in-person education is what does the most good for the most students, and the CDC and the American Academy of Pediatrics seem to agree. You have given parents, like Scott, choice, should they not wish their kids to return to school, even in the absence of risk factors. I commend you for supporting and respecting parents in this decision. There are those of us, however, that believe that there is more risk to our children in their continued social isolation than from this virus. We are supported by the current scientific research in this regard. We should be given choice, and our choice should be similarly supported and respected. I believe that teachers are essential workers. They should be given the support and protection they deserve, while recognizing that neither they nor I, as an ER doctor, can provide the same quality virtually as they can in person. Time has proven that adherence to strict mitigation strategies by healthcare professionals has kept the incidence of disease and those having direct contact with COVID-infected patients low. Social distancing will provide teachers even greater protection than can be afforded those of us in direct patient care. I believe the school board needs to stop using generalized population data and instead utilize location-specific and age-adjusted incidence, hospitalization, and death rates so that we can be laser-focused on our population of concern and our outcomes of concern in back-to-school planning. I think we should return all students of all ages when the metrics are in yellow, at the very least. I think we need to consider the situation on the ground on a school-by-school basis so that outbreaks in one area or school
30 seconds.
might mean the closure of one or a few schools rather than the shuttering of the entire system. I think we need to double down on efforts to provide a safe in-person learning environment for students and staff, especially by providing proper PPE to teachers. And finally, to continue to support and educate those who are at high risk or choose to continue to have their children learn in the virtual setting. Thank you very much for your time, for putting our students first. Be well.
Thank you.
Our next speaker is Duke Owens.
Welcome.
Good evening, everybody. I'm here for virtual. I believe that virtual is working out for some of the students. And I've been in the school system for 17 years. Seeing being in the virtual and the Zoom, watching that the kids that's on the video doing Zoom, and for the kids that's already in the building, once they get in the building, they're still logging on, still doing Zoom, just like they're doing on the video. I also feel like that dealing with special needs kids that I'm dealing with in the school system is it's hard to keep their masks on. Seeing that every day, as we went back today, asking them to change their masks. Like the kids I deal with, a lot of the times their masks are messy and nasty, and you have to debate with them to they take the mask off to switch, and they don't understand why. You have to keep explaining it to them so they can keep switching the mask. Coming back from the cafeteria, back into the classroom, asking them to wash their hands or use hand sanitizer. They don't like doing it, some of them. Not all of them, but some of them. You have to deal with that. We also have a couple kids that in the classroom that dealing with autism, and they're jumping up and down. They don't understand their seat. And we had an incident today where a kid pulled his mask down and sneezed while he was standing up. And we've been watching videos when you sneeze, the saliva and spit and the molecules goes everywhere when you sneeze. It doesn't just happen right in front of you, but it spreads, and we saw that. I really think virtual will work out until we finish or until they find the cure for the COVID-19. Again, I don't have any notes or anything, but I came straight from the heart. the way I feel and the way I wanted to talk to express. Before I leave, I also wanted to just think about it. If your son or daughter that goes to a public school end up getting in contact with the COVID and go back and spread it to a loved one, and we saying that we're dealing with, our kids are dealing with mental issues, and I do believe that they do need to get to talk and have friends. I believe that 100%. But if your kid comes back and gets in contact with it and spreads it to a loved one, and next thing you know, you and your loved ones are sitting together thinking about a funeral arrangement, what's going to happen then? Now you're dealing with the mental issue. Again, I thank you for giving me the opportunity to talk. God bless and have a good night.
Thank you.
Our next speaker is Annie Speckhart.
Welcome.
Hey, hi everybody. Thank you so much for coming tonight. I know you have to be here anyway, but I really appreciate everything you're doing. I would not want to be in your position at all, trying to have to deal with something like this, because we are in tough times. Anyway, so I am a mom of a high school junior, and it breaks my heart every morning to wake up and I look at his bedroom door and it's shut. And that's not normal for a 17-year-old. I have some statistics. I know you've heard a lot of statistics. I'm going to be pretty brief tonight. But we're very fortunate in Virginia Beach. Since the beginning of the pandemic, according to the Virginia Department of Health, we have lost 130 people total in all of Virginia Beach. In a town of about 450,000 people, this means that the survival rate from a COVID-related infection in Virginia Beach is overall about 99.975%. But it affects age groups differently. Only one death has been under the age of 30. And 0 deaths, 0, have been under the age of 20. We are fortunate the survival rate for the K through 12 population is 100%. So I ask, as a parent of a mother, why are they still doing virtual school? I had a few thoughts as I was driving here, and you know, you're only 18 once. My heart breaks for the seniors. You are 18 once. You don't ever get to go back and do that again. And they're being robbed of that. They're not, you know, I understand the position you're in, but, you know, and I'm not bringing this up. I watched my mom pass away in a nursing home in May during COVID, but she did not die of COVID, but the isolation and loneliness accelerated her death so much faster than it should have been. Not only hers, but her roommate and the guy next door. So I do believe that is a real problem, the loneliness and isolation, and not all children are as lucky as my kid. I grew up in a very tough home. I didn't want to be home. I wanted to be in school. So, you know, like I said, I understand where you guys are coming from. I mean, one death on your shoulders, I can't even imagine the burden you guys bear every day. And I thank you for even like sitting here listening to all of us. So we're all grateful for all of you. So anyway, I'm just asking to get them back to school because they don't get these years back. And I've even asked my son, I said, please go to a private school because then you'll be able to be in person with other people. And he doesn't want to. He's so close to graduating. He's like, Mom, I just want to finish it up. So anyway, COVID's been here for 9 months. It's not going anywhere anytime soon. We have to live with it. I mean, we have to create a new normal. Let's live with it. Let's wash our hands. Let's be careful. And then another thing, I have a problem. When he did go back to school for the 2 days, he went back. I was just surprised they had to wear their masks at their desks. If you're all social distance, I don't understand, but I just please hope you guys here are pleased that these children, I mean, we were all kids once. Try to think back when we were, even the little ones, like I'm so grateful I have a 17-year-old, but I can't imagine the little ones sitting behind a computer. So anyway, I'm really grateful for all of you guys. Thank you so much, and God bless all of you. Thank you.
Thank you.
Our next speaker is Deborah Jeanette.
Welcome.
Hi, thank you. Okay, so my name is Deborah Jeanette, and I am a second grade teacher in Virginia Beach Schools, and I'm also the parent of a senior in Virginia Beach Schools. And I'm here to advocate for face-to-face instruction. So as for my students, in my years of teaching, I have never had a classroom full of students who have been as well behaved as my classes this year. These children have been so thankful to be in school, and they have been terrified if they misbehave or break rules that they won't be allowed to come back into the building. So many pieces of the writing that I received from my students say something about I just want to be back in school. I want to be in the classroom with you. I know that I'm not the only teacher seeing this behavior in school, but that's not why I'm here tonight. The main reason that I'm here to speak on behalf of my son, who is a high school senior, and every other teenager who is in his shoes. Mine is not the child who is an athlete worrying about a scholarship, nor is he the academy student with expectations to attend an Ivy League college. He is the average student who is failing during this closure. During conversations, I often hear people say, the seniors are done. Let them stay virtual. They're finished with school. They've already been accepted to colleges. They're finished. And that may be true, but not for all seniors, and certainly not for mine. I was nervous about coming here to talk about a personal situation, which is a family who has a high school child failing school right now. But I know that I'm not the only parent in this situation. My son is one of the kids who doesn't like school. He never has. School has always been a struggle. The closing has created a dire situation in our home. Again, I know I'm not alone, but he's giving up. And as a parent, I'm well aware of what my responsibility is to my child. But being at home on the computer all day has sent him into a depression. Getting him out of bed just to attend class is a fight. He made a choice to enter the VOTEC program, which is awesome. The VOTEC program, last year when he realized that college would not be a feasible option right now. It was a great decision. But now with VOTEC being virtual, he's lost interest in that as well. He just wants school to be over so that he can go to work for his dad. What I'm asking is that you take into consideration all students right now who are at risk for failure. These students are at risk. They may not have a formal label, but if being virtual is affecting their ability to pass high school, then they are at risk. They need to be able to finish school and continue on with their lives successfully. This is a depression, and this depression is dangerous. If parents want to keep their kids at home, then they should be able to, but open for the kids whose lives depend on being in school. I understand there's a teacher. I understand the staffing. I am one of the staff. I respect the problem with that. I'm teaching virtually and
30
face-to-face when the
seconds.
schools are open. So I'm just asking you to please consider letting the kids and the older kids get back into school. Thank you.
Thank you.
Our next speaker is Danielle Mitchell.
Welcome.
Hi. Good evening, everyone. My name is Danielle Mitchell, and I am here today to speak on the topic of bringing Option 1 children back to school in person. As a mother of twin kindergartners who also have an IEP for speech, I can attest firsthand to the struggles of virtual learning and the desperate need for the hands-on learning approach that only an elementary classroom can provide. I have also witnessed firsthand the safety procedures that were in place at our elementary school, consisting of masks all day, plexiglass. The kids couldn't sit next to each other at lunch or recess or snack time. And although it's not how I envisioned my child's first year of school, I was at least could take comfort in the fact that they were getting some sort of an education. So before I begin, I would just like to take a moment to make one thing perfectly clear. Just because I am adamantly opposed to our school board's decision to forego science and keep our children virtual learning for the undetermined future, in no way, shape, or form do I want to diminish the incredible job that our teachers have been doing. They are overworked and underpaid and doing their absolute best to keep our kids engaged while sitting behind a monitor for 6 hours a day, which is no easy feat. 4 minutes is not nearly enough time to go into great detail about the statistics, data, and public statements from health professionals on why children should remain in school, regardless of the numbers increasing during flu season. The Cliff Notes version of this is the CDC Director, Robert Redfield, in a press conference 2 weeks ago, advised that schools are one of the safest places for kids to be during the pandemic, and that the risk of closing schools far outweighs the risk of keeping them open. The World Health Organization advised that masks are how we curb the spread of COVID and that closing schools does not lower the community COVID numbers. Dr. Fauci just this past Sunday said, and I quote, "If you look at the data, the spread among children and from children is not really very big at all, not like one would have expected." Researchers believe the reason schools have not become COVID hotspots is that children, especially those under the age of 12, are less likely to get the virus, and once they are infected, are less likely to pass the virus on to others. Why is it that the school board saw zero problem pushing the advice of our country's top health officials last spring or early fall when they recommended closing, but now that they are all in unison that schools should stay open, we are being told the school board is taking advice from local health officials? Who are the local health officials, and why do they disagree with the advice of the top leading infectious disease experts? How is it that the Chesapeake Public School Board can use updated models to pivot a new plan that better serves their children, but VB refuses to consider adopting a similar stance? Changing the amount of days our numbers have to fall below the metrics from 14 down to 7 doesn't fix the problem. The days are insignificant if the metrics stay high during flu season. Our kids could be out of school for months with no end in sight. The virus is here to stay, and it's time we stop implementing short-term solutions for a long-term problem. VB schools expect teachers, parents, and students to roll with the punches and be willing to adjust our plans accordingly, then I think it's only fair that we are given the same respect in return. I ask that you reconsider your reopening plan for students and
30
teachers
seconds.
who choose option 1, and at the very least bring back the elementary school kids who need the classroom to learn the fundamentals that will shape their education for years to come. 2020 has certainly been a wild year, and standing up here today trying to convince our local school board that kids should be attending school certainly solidifies that. Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Our next speaker is Layla Denny.
Welcome.
Thank you. Thank you so much for allowing us to speak tonight. I originally came to speak on the negative impact virtual learning is having on my own children, the emotional and mental toll, the social isolation, the lack of human connection, the depression and anxiety, which I know we're all experiencing right now. But I felt compelled to speak on behalf of my 2 military kids who've been made to move and start over again and again, to reestablish relationships with teachers, to understand new curriculum, to miss out on academic opportunities because of timing, to put themselves out there trying to fit in, find new friends in every move, in every new school, and it hasn't been easy. But the school itself has been an essential lifeline for my kids, and I know it is for thousands of other military kids right here in our community. But as I thought about the impact the school has had on our lives, I realized there's a greater injustice going on for so many other children in our community. I'm talking about our highest risk kids, our special needs kids, our homeless kids, our children trying to survive in abusive and neglectful homes, our children growing up in violent communities, our children with food insecurities and parents who work multiple jobs can't be present to provide vital help and support when necessary. These are the kids that really need our voices. These are the kids who are going to suffer the most if we continue to keep our schools closed. These are the children who are sure to experience long-lasting, even irreversible damages. The divide separating typical kids from these high-risk kids is only going to deepen. I saw firsthand the terrible impact this is having on this population as I worked as a school-based OT last spring with a population of severely autistic children. These are kids who are nonverbal. They have difficulty with any change in routine. They became increasingly aggressive and self-injurious at home. They were children who were unable to learn in a virtual format. These children and all of our high-risk kids need to be back in school. I recognize the physical impact this virus is having on our country, but I urge you to look at the data. Look at the school systems all over the country who are making it work. Look at the private schools in our own community that have managed successfully. I really believe we are all here for the same reason. We're here for our children. Please consider allowing those who want the opportunity to go back to come back. Thank you.
Thank you.
Our next speaker is Wendy Miller.
Welcome.
Good evening. Thank you for this opportunity, Dr. Spence and fellow school board members. I am here tonight with a desire and to speak from my heart. I'm coming to you as a parent with 2 children in the Virginia Beach schools. I come to you as an employee of a special education teacher assistant, and I come to you as one that my life and my children's lives are forever impacted from COVID. I have a speech, but as I sat out in my car and realized I had to sit in my car. I couldn't come in here and be social distance. But today, what was asked of me was to return to my building. And I did that. I showed up because I care. I showed up because I know that's what they need. I wholeheartedly know that. I've been a PA for a few years. We have seen the mental impact, not just because of COVID, but because of their lives, because of our previous speakers that have spoke. Their home situations are not fair. They need us, and we need them. That is who we are as teachers, as teacher assistants, as our admin, our support staff. We are all here for the common ground. A plan was presented in September. I chose for myself as an employee and for my children to return face-to-face. I felt safe in that decision. It was the right thing to do. But I also made that decision based on how COVID impacted my life. It was safe. I felt the need to come here tonight because there's a lot in our community that are arguing and want our children back, that feel teachers don't want to go to work. Far from the truth. We show up every day to be the front line, to give these children what they need. Virtual teaching and virtual learning is hard for everybody. It's not easy on the children mentally. It's not easy on the parent mentally. It's not easy on the staff. But we show up, we pivot, we make the change swiftly, and we do what we need to do to show up this morning at 8:30 to get those children off the bus. But as I sat in the car, and I'm like, I can't come and sit next to you. And why is that? But I was asked this morning to greet my little ones that I was face-to-face with, that I've seen on the screen, and it breaks my heart because face-to-face, I can get that communication. Again, special ed. I see it. They want a hug. We can't communicate with them from a distance. We have a plexiglass. It doesn't work. All I am asking is for you to take a step, wholeheartedly think about what the front
30
line
seconds.
looks like. It's not easy for anybody. And I know emotion may be presented tonight, it may not. But the decision we made was based on what the plan was in September. I don't feel safe returning my 2 children if things are changed. It's not safe, guys. And I know this for a fact. And this is what each and every one of you, I want you to go home and think about.
And that is time.
I was the first parent the first
Well,
daughter.
we can ask you to finish, follow up with your concluding remarks.
Hey, one last statement. Schools closed in March. The governor made the right choice. It wasn't in time to save my dad. My dad had it. He passed without knowing he had COVID. It was so new to our area. He was the first one in Virginia Beach. But you know what? I showed up today. I showed up because our kids care. But we need to be the voice too for the children that don't have a voice.
Thank you so much.
Madam Chair, we are now going to move on to our online speakers. Our first speaker is Jim Spruill. Please unmute.
Welcome.
Mr. Spruill is not online. We will move to Shannon. Please unmute.
Welcome.
Good evening, and thank you for allowing me the opportunity to speak. My name is Shannon Cole, and I'm a special education teacher who returned to the classroom today. I want to make it clear that I adore my students. They are my why. I want to be with them in person each and every day when it is safe. Most students who receive special education services learn best in the face-to-face setting. Most of these students also have many of these students also have compromised immune systems or difficulty following safety protocol due to their disability. If we are in the red and it is not safe for the majority of students to return, it is not safe for anyone to return. Mental health is a focus for returning students to the classroom. I urge you to consider the mental health of all stakeholders involved. How does sending someone back into the classroom when it has been deemed unsafe impact mental health? How does valuing one employee's safety over another's impact mental health? I feel devalued and disposable. I have spoken to many distraught colleagues who feel the same. Do our lives matter? I agree with the position that the mental health of students, particularly special education students in Title I schools, requires attention and action. Mental health concerns were on the rise prior to the pandemic. The social emotional needs of many students require as much or more specially designed instruction than the academic needs. Our kids have been in crisis. Bringing them face to face in the red does not change that. If you want to do what is best for our students and address the root problem, lower case sizes so that we can provide the support our students truly need, whether they are virtual or in person. Our students need structure, routine, and consistency. The only constant we have had in our district's plan is change. Please listen to the boots on the ground. We love our students. We have made making a difference in their lives our life's work. We know what is best for them. Let us work together safely to provide the instruction and support our students desperately need. Returning level 2 students to the classroom does not do this. It was reported in the news that these students are in classes with no more than 10 students and 2 teachers. I will tell you that that is not always the case. I provide services for 13 students across 2 grade levels and 3 general education classes. 2 of my students have returned face-to-face, while my assistant and I continue to provide virtual instruction to our other 11 students in 3 classes who also have a significant amount of services. COVID has left many things out of our control. We can control ensuring our students have equitable opportunities for learning. Bringing them back into the building while in the red does not achieve this. School does not look the same. Reducing caseload sizes, particularly in Title I schools, who, by the way, have additional supports with reading coaches and math coaches, but there are no additional supports added for special education students who are facing socioeconomic and other disparities as well. I urge you to step back and look at the big picture. Sending students back to school in the red does not solve the problem. The problem is much larger. The lack of equity among special education students, especially in Title I schools, must be addressed. I urge you to take a stand to really make a difference in the lives of our students. They deserve it.
Thank you.
Our next speaker is Elizabeth Shovlin. Please unmute.
Welcome.
Thank you. I had the opportunity to review the VBCPS legislative agenda. While I expect the division to advocate for education and our children, I expect the same for our elected officials. Sadly, this is not what is happening. I come to you tonight with grave concerns about Mrs. Manning and Mrs. Hughes' disturbing blogs and videos surrounding their views on school choice. As a 12-year veteran of education and a parent of 2 VB school students, I was horrified when I read Mrs. Manning's special feature on Carrie Dougherty's blog and again in the Virginian Pilot. She stated that the public should demand that their local and state elected leaders provide them with their constitutional right to high quality education and sought the public to reach out to the legislators. I want Mrs. Manning to know that every single day, myself and my fellow educators are providing the high quality education you are seeking. Incredible lessons are created daily. Students in kindergarten are learning to speak the language of a mathematician while they collaborate with their peers in math. Lessons are differentiated to ensure students are learning where they're at and not where the system expects them to be. Virginia was the first state to require computer science standards K through 12. Teachers are actively working to integrate these standards in the K through 8 classrooms. Computer science is more than just coding. It's computational thinking, problem solving, collaboration, critical thinking. We do all of this in a school building, and we do all of this through Zoom. Mrs. Manning continuously compares VB schools to private schools. We are not a private school. We're an incredibly successful, very large public school system, and we provide a top-notch education to 67,000 students. We're doing the very best we can in the middle of a global pandemic. And I must say, we're doing a darn good job. If Mrs. Manning's blogs and Facebook posts are not painful enough, Mrs. Hughes' appearances at political functions touting her same love for the school choice is like salt in a wound. A few weeks ago, a citizen posted a video of Mrs. Hughes saying that she was proud to say she was one of 3 who profoundly voted against the equity policy. She claimed that the school to prison pipeline was due to a lack of education and directly related to a child's low reading level. She referred to it as the soft racism of below expectations. She also stated that schools are able to hold us captive with our tax dollars and that school choice makes sense now. School choice makes sense now because we're in the middle of a pandemic or because she, Mrs. Manning and Mrs. Weems are against the equity policy? Or is this just because they hate public schools? I'm okay with freedom of speech and differing opinions, but I'm not okay with school board members who work against our public schools every single day. The public schools that these school boards have taken an oath to represent and advocate for the best interests of. It is an absolute slap in the face to the 15,000 employees who give everything they have to the children of Virginia Beach. Bylaw 1-4 sets the expectation that all of our school board members will uphold the needs of our schools to the city council and our legislators. When I reviewed the legislative agenda that this same board voted and approved in 2020, it reads VBCPS is opposed, let me repeat that, opposed to any legislation that would remove the local school board's authority to establish charter schools within its boundaries, including any change to the Virginia Constitution or legislation that would give the Virginia Board of Education the authority to create regional charter schools. If this is the board's own legislative agenda, then why do we have several board members advocating publicly as VBCPS school board members for school choice? If Mrs. Manning and Mrs. Hughes are so concerned about private education, perhaps it's time they resign and serve on a private school board. Thank you all very much for your time.
Thank you.
Our next speaker is Elizabeth Butta. Please unmute.
Welcome.
Good morning. It's nice to see everybody. Good evening. First, I want to commend the support I have received in building and to clarify that my following comments have nothing to do with my building admin, who are and continue to be the most supportive, accommodating, and professional admin team I have ever had the pleasure of working with. I come to you as a special education teacher with over 10 years experience. I have worked in many difficult environments, including alternative schools and residential treatment centers. Throughout my career, I have found strength in advocacy and helping my students find their voice. It is at this critical juncture amid a worldwide pandemic that I have lost my own. I am completely and utterly broken as an educator. While I care very much about my students, my day is not what has been described during some of these meetings or even spoken about. My day is physically exhausting with a student that does not social distance, does not understand the concept, continually attempts to sit on me or beside me, frequently removes their mask, requires hand-over-hand instruction, is not able to complete tasks independently, and frequently tries to elope from the classroom or crawl under and on top of furniture, forcing me to make myself a physical barrier. All of this is going on while I am attempting to teach 10 other kindergarten students online. This is not okay. There is frequent screaming. I am not able to focus on the instruction any of my students should be getting. I left a building in great haste on a Monday after being told with less than half a day's notice that I should be prepared to teach virtually the next morning, as our metrics deemed it too unsafe to be in the building. A few short days later, I received the email that mandated I return to the same building with rising metrics. That all of a sudden was deemed safe for me and my special education student, despite the fact that I am not, as a rule, able to complete any of the health mitigation efforts due to the very nature of my job. I cannot distance. I cannot refrain from touching the student. I cannot spray and let it stand 3 minutes because my student will likely attempt to touch it. I cannot do anything but hope I am not bringing home a virus to my own family while attempting to teach virtually with that happening in the background. The message when sending back level 2 SPED students and teachers is, you are disposable. We do not care about your health. You are not important and you don't matter. I am quite sure this is not the message you wish to push out, but it is 100% the message your special educators received. Special education is a critical shortage area for this district and almost every other district in the state. Currently, there are 15 special education positions open in Virginia Beach. There will be many, many, many more. I am broken. I am completely and utterly broken. If you do not take care of the educators, you will not have anyone to care for your special education students. Please consider the enormity of the message you are sending. Instead of ensuring your most vulnerable students get the services they need, you are doing quite the opposite. You are ensuring there won't be anyone left to provide these services. Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Our next speaker is Brenda Harris. Please unmute.
Welcome.
I am a community member. First, I will read a letter from a teacher and then make some points about contact tracing. I keep hearing our kids are behind, but my question is, behind what? Behind the standardized test we give? Behind on a state SOL where 45% accuracy is needed to pass? Yes, that is a real pass rate for a math SOL that's a graduation credit. We are not giving credit to the fact that when our students are learning virtually, they are learning time management, planning, organization. This is an opportunity to instruct and drastically improve executive functioning skills that will prepare our students to excel at higher level learning in the workforce. This pandemic hasn't put us behind like many think, but it has shed light on the faults that have failed to be addressed. It's showing how over-testing is affecting learning. It's showing just how big some learning gaps are. A piece that was added this year was numeracy time, but no guidance was given, no resources provided. It looks good on paper, but is it really working? Who do you think is creating the resources? Probably the same teachers who aren't providing a quality education, as some board members have implied. Mental health is a problem, but it's not a new problem. Sadly, in the last few years, students have written me suicide notes on tests or left them in their desk. These kids sat in our classrooms day in and day out. Why did they reach out for help? Because of the relationships that we built. The same can occur virtually. I've listened to stories about pets instead of taking my lunch break. Kids sign into study hall to tell me stories about their days. Despite what some of you believe, we are building meaningful relationships with these kids. Have you considered the staff's mental health? When you do bring us back, you isolate us. We are not allowed to interact with our peers. We can't go in their room to help with a technology problem because it's not safe. Yet it's safe enough to be back in a classroom full of kids? Does virtual learning have its flaws? Yes. Are some kids failing? Yes. Were kids failing when inclusion classes were in person with 32 plus kids? You bet. You tell us to be data driven. So I'm asking you, will you let data drive your decision? Now about contact tracing. We hear over and over that there is no evidence of virus transmission in the schools. But how would anyone know if there was asymptomatic transmission if there's no random testing? Corona cases dropped by around 30% in England during the country's recent second national lockdown. Infections were down among most age groups except those of school age, where there was an increase. Schools remained open during the second national lockdown while they were closed in the first lockdown in the spring. The virus was obviously being transmitted in the schools, and that is probably, I will say definitely, happening here. I've heard it said that if New York City can open their schools, so can Virginia Beach. But there are some important differences between the two cities. First of all, New York City's percent positivity rate is below 5%. In New York City, the student desks are spaced 6 feet apart, not 3 feet if feasible, as they are here. And most importantly, perhaps, New York City is randomly testing 20% of the students and staff each week. There is no surveillance testing in Virginia Beach. We don't know how.
Thank you. You can follow up with any additional comments. Thank you.
Our next speaker is Lila Goodman. Please unmute.
Hear me?
Welcome. A little louder.
Okay. Can you hear me?
No.
Need to be louder.
Try to speak up, please.
I'm trying. Can
Turn up the volume.
I'm sorry. This is the best I can do. Can you
Okay,
hear
that's
me?
better.
Okay. Okay. Good evening. I've had an entirely different speech planned for tonight, but what I was going to say has been said over and over again by many previous in-person speakers. You can add my name to the list of another angry, frustrated parent. I'm concerned about the well-being of my 2 high school students and the fact that they haven't been in school for almost 9 months. Throughout this entire pandemic, we've been told that you're following expert scientific data. The scientific expert data is now saying kids are safer in school and should be in school. Even New York City public schools are going back to school, which is the epicenter of where COVID started in America. Chesapeake schools are in school, and private schools in our area have never closed. You're obligated to provide a quality education to our children, and it's not happening virtually. A direct quote from my son's friend yesterday said, "I feel like we haven't been in school for a year. It's such a joke. We're going to be so dumb, and when we go to college, or if we're even accepted at this point." I have a family member whose child is a senior in the VOTEC program for plumbing and HVAC. He's given up completely and is working at a pizza parlor because his future, he feels like, is ruined because he has had no hands-on experience in that field. I want to quote something I read earlier today. Schools exist to educate children, not to employ adults. Scared to teach your kids? There are other professions. Because for adults, teaching is optional. For kids, learning is essential. School is really about kids first and foremost, and I really hope that we can start making decisions based on the best interest of our kids. Thank you.
Thank you. Our next speaker is Kelly Walker. Please unmute.
Welcome.
Good evening, Chairwoman Rye, Vice Chairwoman Melnick, Superintendent Spence, and members of the school board. My name is Kelly Walker, and I serve as the president of the Virginia Beach Education Association. I would like to speak tonight on the legislative agenda and the fall 2020 plan. First, the VBA supports the VBCPS legislative agenda in its entirety as it works to pass legislation from the General Assembly that will provide important funding streams to our school division. In particular, legislation that protects funding to our division as the number of students in our system fluctuates due to the pandemic, and increasing teacher pay and increasing the number of mental health professionals to support students are critical to successfully supporting our schools. Those board members who support school choice or do not vote for the adoption of the legislative agenda do not have the best interest of public education in mind. The VBA Board of Directors also encourages the school board to unanimously adopt the legislative agenda. And in regard to the fall 2020 plan, the VBA Board of Directors sent a statement to the school division today that requests, and I quote, that all students and staff remain virtual while in the red zone, as directed by the VBCPS fall 2020 plan. Members of the VBA are concerned that sending any student or staff member to school when it is not safe to do so is hazardous to the health and safety of the community at large. That said, the VBA has circulated a petition to VBCPS employees in order to show support for keeping all students and staff, including special education students and staff, safe during the pandemic. The petition was sent along with the comments for their consideration. The VBA is also concerned that today, December 1, 2020, some special education students and staff returned to face-to-face instruction while in the red zone. The VBA and many special education staff professionals are concerned that this is not safe for the following reasons. One, many of the students are not able to wear masks due to health requirements or emotional needs. Two, many of these students are unable to effectively social distance due to health requirements or emotional needs. Three, the VDOE has given local school divisions the direction as to when and how these students can return to face-to-face instruction. Therefore, there is no binding or legal reason to bring this particular group of students to school when it is not safe. Four, many special education professionals are fearful of returning to face-to-face instruction after a holiday. Students and their families travel and may be exposed to the virus and bring it back to their school. Five, the health department is overwhelmed by the pandemic as it just does not have the capacity to effectively contract trace the virus in many situations. And finally, six, many special education professionals are fearful of working under conditions that present a risk to their health and safety. They do not believe the school division has their best interests in mind and does not value their health and or welfare. I would also like to say that many educators are trepidatious when sharing their voice on this issue in fear of retribution from their principal or school division. They are concerned that they will be given a new prep or a challenge or a change in grade level, given a negative evaluation, not promoted or moved to another classroom. The trepidation employees feel when expressing their concerns is not beneficial to our division and must change. Finally, the VBA Board of Directors understands the complexity surrounding the pandemic and support any and all actions that keep students and employees safe. Please let the VBA know how we may support the division during this health crisis. Thank you.
Thank you.
Our next speaker is Marianne Keel Kearney. Please unmute.
Welcome.
Thank you. Can you hear me okay? A little louder, maybe? Sure. Thank you. Is this better? Better. Great. Thank you for putting me on the agenda tonight. My name is Marian. I'm a graduate of VB Schools, a former teacher with the VB school system, and I have a child currently attending middle school within VB Schools. I first want to say that my daughter's teachers and building principal have been doing such a great job adapting to the situation. They're obviously trying very hard to make things the best that they can be for our kids, and I'm extremely grateful. Clearly, sorting through the complexities of this pandemic, then making decisions that affect thousands of people's daily lives is really, really hard. So I'm not here tonight to suggest that I or any other parents have it all figured out or have all the answers. That said, it does seem to me and lots of other really concerned parents that it's time to revisit and perhaps rework the plan devised over last summer. Givens. Given the safety measures currently in place in the buildings and on buses appear to be working, given the data locally, nationally, and even internationally so far shows community spread is by and large not occurring within the schools that have those safety measures in place, and given the ongoing negative societal effects of having this many kids out of school for this long, it does seem as though the time has come to reassess. I know this forum is not really interactive, but I'm here tonight to ask what concerned parents like me who want to help move toward opening more classrooms can do to help you all. Should we be advocating for revision of the metrics and the region as it's defined in the current plan? Should we be lobbying public decision makers for funding for COVID tests and contact tracers? Private schools are testing and quarantining successfully, as other people have noted. Should we be pushing for a tailored approach that handles schools on an individual basis when making shutdown decisions? Or is it a combination of all these things? Waiting for the vaccine to become widely distributed and hoping for the best next September? Or waiting for the entire East region to attain the currently required metric levels does not feel proactive enough. And it does not feel like we're doing the best that we can for our kids. If the shared goal is to enable safe and widespread in-person instruction for those who want it, what specifically can we concerned parents do to help you and the building principals get the resources that you need? I presume that you all can answer me via email, so I will follow up that way. And thank you very much.
Thank you.
Our next speaker is Kat Evans. Please unmute.
Welcome.
Kat Evans, please unmute.
I'm sorry. I'm unmuted. Can you hear me now?
Yes.
All right. Sorry, I had just started. All right. So good evening, Dr. Spence, Chairman Rye, and board members. Thank you so much for your time and patience while listening to us speakers. You can see we're all very passionate about education in Virginia Beach. The COVID dashboard shows that 65 confirmed cases in our district since November, and today our metrics in Virginia were 1,893 new cases and 4 new deaths as per Johns Hopkins. The World Health Organization, just to refer back to one of our earlier speakers about taking temperatures, thermal scanners, the World Health Organization said they cannot detect COVID-19. Many people are asymptomatic. They don't have symptoms. They don't have a fever. So that's not a good screening strategy to say that, hey, it's safe to come back in because we took your temperature. That's not always the case. I teach 3rd grade in a Title I school in Virginia Beach. I'm also a mother of a high school student in Virginia Beach. Teachers, admin, and staff are worn thin, and I know for a fact that I'm not alone when I strongly remind you that this is not a normal school year. Please stop trying to treat it like it is. Our district has the same pacing a normal 5-day-a-week face-to-face school year has. Teachers are expected to teach this year's objectives in that fast pace with only 4 days a week and teaching it virtually, and all the while catching them up with everything they missed last spring. High school teachers must teach a year's worth of work in a semester while trying to implement IEPs and doing this virtually. Teachers are suddenly expected to switch from Zoom to Google Meet. So those who haven't been doing that are going to have some disruptions in instruction as they learn and students learn how to make that match their structure of their class and work within those limitations and getting all the extensions to make it work properly. The division is losing good teachers. I know many teachers who have been in the schools teaching really good teachers who are leaving or considering leaving. Teachers feel like they have to choose between their class and their family. Do they put work first and put their students first, and then their family are left on the sidelines and not getting the attention and the time that they need because it takes so long to plan for this? Teachers have guilt about spending too much time teaching and not enough time with their families right now because of all the extra demands that this requires. But it's because there's a worldwide pandemic. This is not a normal school year. Staff is being pulled to subs that don't normally sub. Counselors, math specialists, GRTs, literacy coaches, librarians. They're being pulled to substitute, and half the time, it's teachers won't take those days off when they're sick because it's so hard to get someone to take your class virtual and teach it. Last, I have a teacher who wanted me to, who I'm sharing, who anonymously had a message to share. She is a special education teacher. She teaches 2nd grade and 3rd grade. She teaches 9 students, 4 being option 1. Today, she returns to class. She said that my class, my teaching assistant, and myself are put at higher risk at being exposed to this virus than every other student or staff member in my school building. Why are we suddenly being held to a different standard? The decision was made despite the health metrics. We didn't have a voice in this decision to return. Just as a child, thank you. Just as a child cannot learn in the environment that they don't feel safe in, I cannot be an effective teacher in an environment that I do not feel safe in. It's not safe for the entirety of option 1 students and myself to return. Then it's not safe for my students and myself to return. I never had a choice to teach virtual or face-to-face. One of my students excitedly told me how they went to Chuck E. Cheese last night and met new friends. Now we are all being exposed to this child and everyone that child was exposed to. All right, thank you.
Thank you.
Our next speaker is Braden Wicks. Please unmute.
Good evening.
Welcome.
Can you hear me?
Yes, please go ahead.
Okay. Good evening. Good evening, Dr. Spence, Chairwoman Rye, Vice Chairwoman Melnick, and members of the board. Dr. Spence, I first must address what I spoke about at the last board meeting. I asked you to please be transparent because I was afraid another email bomb was going to be dropped. November 16th at 1:38 p.m., that bomb was dropped on parents, teachers, and students. While we are all aware of the metrics put forth in the plan, alerting parents and teachers that school would return to virtual the very next day shows an extreme lack of leadership and responsibility on your part. I'm sure you would have been inundated with calls and emails as soon as the metrics changed to red, but giving parents, students, and teachers just hours to prepare is completely irresponsible and extremely disrespectful to every teacher in your district. To members of the board, after the September 22nd board meeting, I sent y'all an email thanking you for working together. During that meeting, you all asked and listened and made respectful and thoughtful decisions. Mrs. Weems made a final comment expressing her gratitude for a successful meeting. I ask that you do that same thing tonight. Please put aside your personal differences and please listen to what the parents are asking. Our children have basically been out of school since March. It is a necessity that they return. I fully support any parent who would like their child to remain virtual. I am asking you to support those of us that would like our children to return to school. Please revise the plan now that we have more information than we did when it was written. The director of the CDC and even Dr. Fauci himself both say that schools should be open, that is where children are safe. And our very own superintendent, Dr. Spence, told you all that there's not been one case of confirmed COVID transmission within schools. So why are you preventing children from attending school in person? If you refuse to allow our children to return to school, please consider the format of virtual school and how long children are in front of a screen. Currently, my daughter, 2nd grade, signs on at 8:55 a.m. and signs off at 3:30 p.m. She does get a 30-minute break for lunch and a 30-minute break in the afternoon. However, she is on the screen for 5.5 hours to 6 hours each day. That's 22 hours a week, which is equivalent to a part-time job. Please let that sink in. She's 7 years old. When we returned to virtual school, within 24 hours, she was a completely different child. Virtual school is exhausting to her. You must allow us to return to school or drastically change the format of virtual learning. Tonight, you have heard from 21 parents and students asking you to allow our children to return to school. Please listen. Thank you for your time.
Our next speaker is Peter Alaya. Please unmute.
Welcome.
Thank you. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. I'd first like to thank the board and the division for listening to and hopefully addressing our many concerns. I'm also happy to hear about the possible and hopefully imminent expansion of the VLC. I currently teach at the VLC. I'm thankful that I was given that position, as I would have had to take a leave of absence otherwise. This position allowed me to continue doing what I love to do in a safe manner. I was just saddened by the fact that so many other teachers who were sure they would get a position at the VLC are not only back in the classroom, but also teach concurrent classes. With that being said, I hope that schools can restructure a bit and hopefully either send more students to the VLC or at least build some more virtual teams in their schools to both allow vulnerable teachers to teach safely and to alleviate the burden on building teachers who are teaching concurrently. I can tell you that the VLC is working. I know that virtual learning isn't working for everybody, but it is working for some, and it's working over there. We have a dedicated staff, super supportive administration, and Joe and Joel, everybody else who's supporting us over there. They're just doing whatever we ask to make our classes better, and we are truly blessed. And with that being said, I was going to devote my time to another anonymous letter from a teacher parent that still doesn't feel comfortable speaking in front of the board for fear that they will receive retribution at their school or somewhere else. But I do want to hit on some of those points, but after hearing some of the speakers tonight, I felt I had to pivot towards some of the comments that have been made. Most of them have been very respectful, but some of them have shown why teachers are still some of the most underappreciated and disrespected careers in this country. With that being said, I'd like to share our feelings. I'd like to assure you that your child's teacher loves their students. All they want us to teach, especially in person. It's the best part of our job. I'm sorry that some of these parents who have spoken tonight have seen their students become frustrated with online teaching, but many of us are doing our very best. I'm not sure which teachers are teaching, quote, just showing a bunch of videos, but there may be specific reasons as to why they are doing that. I know that I, like many of my colleagues, teach our classes and then record a separate rundown for students that may have not been able to show up for class on time and still need that instruction. I also know that we post other videos as resources, but we are not relying on videos to do our jobs. We're all well aware of the importance of our voice and attention during class time. I know that many of us also meet with students outside of our office hours constantly and make provisions for parents who want to meet with us. I've had countless teachers reach out to me asking me how they can make more information available for parents and teachers and students to bridge that gap and make the parents feel like more part of the team, right? We're a parent, teacher, student team, and that's what we need to be. If anything, most teachers are stepping way up to make their situations work. So you can imagine my disgust and sadness when I hear parents come talk about my colleagues as if this is some sort of vacation. We do this job because we love working with kids, not because we're hoping a global pandemic comes along to allow us to do our jobs in our pajamas. That's ridiculous. I also heard a few parents talk about how they have to hire tutors for their students to keep up. That shouldn't be. That's a shame, especially when our schools offer so much help for our students in that way. Not only do we constantly have after-school meetings with students to get them caught up, but we also offer homework help and tutoring with our teachers. We also know that many of our colleagues, including me, help many students that aren't even our students, whether they belong to fellow teachers, neighbors, or friends. Also, I still continue to hear how kids need school because of their home lives, and I get that. Growing up in New York to a single mother who was also a teacher who was struggling to get through school while she was teaching, I'm well aware of what it's like to grow up needing time in school. I get this. All of these things are tough, but to have to come here and almost have to interview on behalf of my colleagues for our jobs when we're losing teachers every day for mistreatment like this is the most depressing situation I've ever dealt with in my teaching career. As I've said, I'm a tech ed teacher. I love doing what I do. I want nothing more to get back into school and be a STEM coach and be an English and social studies and math tutor and be a tech ed teacher, but I'm doing the best I can online with my students while I have them. So I thank you. Have a good night.
Thank you.
Our next speaker is Catherine Malley. Please unmute.
Good evening. Can you hear me? Yeah, okay, good.
We can, loud and clear.
Good evening, Superintendent Spence, Chairperson Rye, and members of the Virginia Beach School Board. My name is Catherine Malley, and I am a 20-year educator in Virginia Beach and a board member of the Virginia Beach Education Association. I am currently teaching pre-K at Arrowhead Elementary. Tonight, I will be reading a speech written by an anonymous colleague who wanted to voice concerns. Teacher trauma. I am concerned for my own and other teachers' mental and emotional health. As a face-to-face elementary teacher, I am in a room with little ones all day. They do not leave the classroom much, if at all. These little ones have a hard time adhering to the mitigation. I have students walk around my plexiglass and table to ask a question or show me something. I have students who spontaneously hug me throughout the day. At the end of the day, I return home to shed my clothing directly into the washing machine and immediately shower off all I can. I am very concerned that I may contract COVID and give it to my family. The toll this is taking on my mental health is immeasurable. Some days, I am completely exhausted from trying to project my voice through a mask to children on the other side of plexiglass. By the end of the week, I am so exhausted that I am asleep, Friday afternoon until Saturday. The physical toll is wreaking havoc on my body, especially my lungs and voice. I also have caught students sharing items. I had to scold a young child for sharing his STEM tools with another student at his table. That is when I realized that this is not the way teaching is supposed to be. It hurts my heart to know that this is the extreme opposite of what we have been steering our compass toward. I have been teaching for 20 years, and this is the first year I have viewed teaching as a job, and a hard one at that. Cooperation, collaboration, and problem solving are the hallmarks of education, especially in VBCPS. Spending my days reminding young children not to share anything or help others in a class is a weight that rests on my soul. All teachers want to be in the classroom where we belong to educate our students. We did not go into our profession for the money and fame. We are educators who have the best interests of all of our students in mind all of the time. Please remember, when you are making decisions about switching back and forth, when you are thinking we want to be home rather than in school, when you are making decisions that have a ripple effect on all involved, not just the students. This is not just about the students. In closing, I remember what the flight attendant told us before takeoff. We must put the oxygen mask on ourselves and then our children. If we do not help ourselves first, we cannot help the children. Thank you.
Thank you.
Next speaker is Susan Eastman. Please unmute.
For giving me a platform to speak tonight. My name is Susan Eastman. I am a licensed professional counselor in private practice working with children and families in the Hampton Roads community. I've been doing this work for about 30 years. I have a sister who's a teacher in Virginia Beach, a mother who taught in Virginia Beach for her entire career, and I am a graduate of Virginia Beach schools. Tonight, I want to tell you 3 things that I know that are true about the mental health of children and how these truths might inform the school board's decision to reopen. Number 1, children always feel empowered if they can control some aspects of their life. For young and old, a sense of control reduces fear and anxiety. Where do you have more control than in your own home? To reduce fear in children, online learning is best. Number 2, children look to adults in their life for guidance on how to react to stressful events. How are teachers reacting to the stressful event of returning to in-person learning during the peak of a pandemic? I have enormous respect for all teachers and value their physical and mental health. Teachers are not immune to stress. The parent or caregiver at home has fewer germs to manage than the teacher in the classroom. The less stressful option for the adults, and thus the children, is online learning. Number 3, children thrive on routine. Physical, emotional, and mental health are all improved with a predictable, calming, day-to-day routine. Flipping back and forth on decisions regarding learning formats is keeping children off balance and reducing their feelings of well-being. With time and parental effort, a predictable learning routine will form in the home. Online learning allows a routine to be established. a routine that does not have to be changed with the up and down percentage of the virus in the community. Nothing about this period of time is normal. Thinking your child will return to in-person and have a normal school experience means you are out of touch with reality. I agree with the Virginia Beach teacher, Kat Evans, who spoke earlier. This is not a normal year. It is not safe. Whatever you guys are doing now is not working, so figure out something else, okay? You can't just send people back in the middle of a pandemic. Let's empower the children, give them a good role model for managing stress, and provide a predictable routine. Let's support our children's mental health during this difficult situation.
Thank you.
Our next speaker is Brenda Lamb. Please unmute.
Welcome.
Superintendent Spence, Chairwoman Rye, and members of the board, my name is Brenda Lamb. I am a National Board Certified Special Education teacher in Virginia Beach. I would like to begin by saying thank you for sticking with the agreed upon plan and sending all students immediately to virtual when one of the metrics hit red. The plan Dr. Spence stuck to in making his decision was the plan that was not only agreed upon by this board, but was also approved by the Virginia Department of Education and Governor Northam. I feel strongly that we need to stick to that plan and perhaps even enhance it by going virtual through at least to the end of the first term, which ends January 30th. By extending the virtual time, you are providing consistency for both students and staff. We all thrive with consistency, and it will allow us all to better plan. The date at the end of the semester also allows us to get through the holidays, which we know will bring about increased cases, and hopefully by that time, COVID testing will be more widely available. Right now, many of us have found it can still take days to get a test done. Some are going around saying that children are not spreaders of this virus. That thinking was months ago when relatively little was known about the virus and everything was still shut down. The current science we know about COVID-19 tells us the exact opposite. In two recent different studies published in peer-reviewed journals, one through Massachusetts General, an elite hospital in the Northeast US, and the other study done by Princeton University in conjunction with Johns Hopkins and the University of California at Berkeley, backed by the National Science Foundation and the CDC. Both studies have found that children are super spreaders of COVID because they carry a higher viral load in their noses and respiratory systems than adults. Because of this, while children may have a lower risk of developing symptoms, they are much more contagious than adults, even when they have no symptoms. The studies also found that 51% of children with acute COVID come from low-income communities, while only 2% come from high-income communities. The key findings were that while children may be less susceptible to COVID, they are much more contagious than adults and more likely to spread the virus to both other children as well as adults. This past weekend, the New York Times posted an article discussing the fact that people with developmental disabilities are more likely to get COVID than the rest of us. Those are the students that returned face-to-face today. Closer to home, recently, a few weeks ago, researchers at the University of Virginia found that COVID has now risen to the third leading cause of death in the United States, right behind heart disease and cancer. The third leading cause of death in our whole country. Dr. Spence and School Board, I am pleading with you to keep us all virtual, including the level 2 SPED students who began face-to-face today. With the rise in cases expected to continue, being all virtual is the only option to keep us all safe. Mental health has been an issue for many years. I've been a veteran teacher for 12 years, and I can tell you over the last 4 to 5 years, I have had many students come to me that have attempted suicide or are cutting, and that is why CHKD began planning.
Thank you. You feel free to follow up with any concluding remarks.
Okay.
Our next speaker is Gina Lane. Please unmute.
Good evening. My name is Gina Lane, and I'm a teacher and parent in Virginia Beach schools. I want to start off tonight by saying thank you to Virginia Beach City Public Schools for sticking to the plan, following our well-established metrics, and taking swift and immediate action to return us all to virtual when our metrics hit red a couple weeks ago. I really appreciate you taking seriously the safety of your students, staff, and our community. One of our neighboring school systems, Chesapeake Public Schools, did not make such a wise decision. According to their dashboard yesterday, they had 21 new cases in one day, 58 over the last 2 weeks, and they currently have 2 outbreaks in progress. A WTKR news article today stated that Chesapeake contact tracers are overwhelmed by the number of COVID-19 contacts, and that they are having to rely on people to notify their close contacts because they are unable to keep up with the demand right now. Again, thank you, Virginia Beach City Public Schools, for taking our safety seriously and shifting us to virtual instruction while we are in the red. Not only are our cases high right now in our city and in our region, but today, Wavy published an article that stated that COVID-19 hospitalizations in Virginia, which are already at a record level, saw a huge jump in hospitalizations. The article noted Hampton Roads, as well as Northern Virginia, have seen the most noticeable upticks in the past 2 weeks. Hampton Roads has more than 100 new patients compared to 2 weeks ago. And according to the VDH website, Virginia Beach has had 53 new hospitalizations in the past 2 weeks. One final statistic: since the last board meeting on November 10th, just 3 weeks ago, 255 children ages 0 to 19 in Virginia Beach have tested positive for COVID. And as a reminder, tonight in the workshop presentation, when guidance from the Virginia Beach Department of Public Health was presented, one of the statements was that there is currently incomplete data on viral spread of children. It was also stated that the Virginia Beach Department of Public Health supports our plan for virtual learning right now because of the current surge. We must do everything we can to help reduce transmission in the community. This needs to include virtual learning until our numbers come back down. Is it what we all want? No. But is it what we all need? Absolutely yes. Teachers and VBCPS have rose to the challenge, and we are doing everything we can to meet the needs of our students academically, socially, and emotionally. We were able to quickly shift our instructional model when we went virtual, and we are deploying every resource possible to help our students. We need to stop dwelling on the negative, but rather focus on the good that has come and can come from this experience. Sometimes it's just a matter of changing your perspective. I ask you tonight to please keep your staff and students safe and keep us virtual while we are in the red. Stick to our metrics voted on back in July. Thank you.
Our next speaker is Mary Worrell. Please unmute.
Welcome.
Thank you. Good evening. My name is Mary Worrell, and tonight I wanted to speak on equity because this discussion that we're having is an equity issue. I'm a teacher in Virginia Beach. I am also disabled. I cannot separate these parts of my identity. I can't put my disability aside when I make decisions, and I'm not alone. 1 in 4 people in the United States is disabled, and I want you to keep that number in mind as I talk to you tonight. Today in my middle school English class, we explored a writing prompt about fairness and what it means for something to be fair. My students shared thoughtful responses about how determining fairness depends on where you come from and what you have or don't have. One student said there were some people might need more help to have the same chance as someone else. Another pointed out that our idea of what is fair has changed over time. While they use words like fair and unfair, what they were really talking about is equity. And this is something that we as teachers think about often in our profession. We know that blanket rules, binary choices, zero tolerance policies, these all create more inequities. They actually make the learning environment less equitable. We're encouraged to give voice and choice to our students. In our planning, we look at their strengths and their needs and try to design lessons for them. And our special education teachers are the best at this, and we learn so much from them in their work. They show us what it means to consider each student as an individual and plan specially designed instruction around them. Now remember, 1 in 4 people is disabled. So when people, including some members of our school board and speakers this evening, try to calm alarm over COVID-19 with phrases like it has a 99.98% survival rate, what they are saying to us, to disabled staff members and disabled students alike, is that you are expendable. Your life is a calculated risk we are willing to take to get back to normal. Now, I know in the hearts of our board members and of the speakers tonight that they do not consider disabled lives as expendable. However, to focus on the percentage survival rate and not consider those on the other side of that statistic, no matter how small a percentage, is to go against everything our district supposedly values. So when facing option 1 and option 2 in those early surveys, the decision carried even more weight for disabled staff members, and it continues to, but it didn't have to be this way. Your disabled staff members are taxed financially and emotionally in this crisis. I ask you tonight, is this equity? Are we valuing differences in the accommodations and options we give to our staff, or are there more creative solutions to getting our kids back in school? As you budget and plan for the future, because we're in budgeting season, I hope you will ask yourself, how might we imagine a more equitable learning and working environment for all staff and students? Because make no mistake, the working environment of your staff is the learning environment for our students. We owe it to our students not to disregard our staff members. Please, in your effort to get back to normal, do not forget whose bodies you are stepping over to do so. We are watching, our disabled students are watching. Think of us. And so I'm asking the school board in its budgeting process to do the following in an effort to get students and staff back in school. Create a more robust leave policy for staff, including part-time employees, so that we can confidently stay home when we display symptoms. Implement surveillance testing. Expand the employee assistance program benefits to better support the mental health of our staff, who are also experiencing the collective trauma of COVID. Audit COVID mitigations in schools, have third-party testing of classroom ventilation systems, lower the cost of health insurance for staff and their families, and implement an anonymous reporting feature for employees, as board member Jessica Owens has proposed numerous times in the past. If we had more protections in our contracts, many of us would be more willing to take these risks. Even those of us who are disabled, including myself, I would be more confident in coming back if I felt like there were more protections for us. However, thank you for budgeting and voting in a way that values differences. Thank you.
Thank you.
Our next speaker is Suzanne Soltaskic. Please unmute.
Welcome. Hello, everybody. This is Suzanne. Can y'all hear me? Yeah. Ah, wonderful. My daughter asked me to share something for her before I did it that she wanted me to vehemently say as she's been listening to these speakers. And she would like for them to please stop talking down about teachers, because her teachers are wonderful and have been doing so much great stuff for her while she's virtual. And she prefers virtual, as I have shared with you guys in an email. That said, I'm here as a parent. I have the option to keep my kids virtual. Not all of the staff members do. And I am here to stand with all of those staff members that do not have that option and to share some of their thoughts. And so I'm here to read an anonymous statement. You keep speaking at school board meetings about how understaffed we are. We are, but one thing that you haven't asked about is how staff quarantine is impacting the ability to keep our schools open. For example, I know that at Point of View, the majority of front office staff was out on quarantine, and a substitute principal had to step in to fill the administrative roles while that happened. Do we have enough substitute school nurses to monitor the health of our students? Because our school nurses are on the front lines and are often exposed and need to be quarantined due to this exposure. I have heard of at least one case where school front office staff were put in the position of determining whether to send students home. That is not fair to the students, to the families, to the community. And it is not fair to that staff at that school. And it is not fair to those that are being asked without training to make that determination. And the majority, and I have also heard that the majority of the Burdett cafeteria staff was quarantined. And I am still wondering if the person who tested positive was preparing food and how that impacted the notifications. I wonder if they stated that they were all wearing all of their PPE, and that was used to decide whether to inform those who ate that food. Because as I have heard this, I have also heard from staff who were not comfortable being questioned about their adherence to rules and stated that they always followed mask and social distancing mask rules because they were worried that it would be reported to their boss by the school nurses. So are they telling the truth? Beyond that, is it actually realistic to think that a teacher is able to teach a class while maintaining a 6 feet of distance at all times? Because do you know how difficult it is to help an elementary student with their computer from 6 feet away on a Chromebook? Or to hear a quiet middle schooler in the back of the room without moving toward them? Our teachers have to break that 6 foot distance constantly in order to do their job in person. In addition, the way that we are doing our contact tracing, we are not picking up on all the asymptomatic or mildly symptomatic cases. And as the Maryland infectious disease modeler Megan Fitzpatrick stated in the Washington Post about schools, stating that there's no in-school spread of the virus. If they are not testing in the aftermath of a case being found, they do not know. And in Virginia Beach, we are using such a small definition of what constitutes a case for tracing that 2 siblings in the same school, both testing positive, had 2 very different responses in that same school because it was on different days. Further, there are cases where the Department of Health recommended a staff member to quarantine when a family member tested positive, but they were told that they could continue coming to work if they wanted. While I'm aware that Virginia Beach is following VD protocols for the most part, these directives for contact tracing are not internal, but please do not make it sound like you believe that this means no school transmission is occurring, because you either don't know or don't want to know. And both are not okay for the decisions that you are making. Willful ignorance is not an acceptable reason to keep the schools open because middle to high income white students want to be with their friends and don't want to fall behind the Virginia Beach objectives that you superimpose on top of state standards of learning. I sincerely hope.
Feel free to up with concluding remarks. We thank you.
Our next speaker is Chris Just. Please unmute.
Welcome.
Hi, can everybody hear me?
Loud and clear.
All right, fantastic. Well, good evening, school board, Dr. Spence. I've been in front of you a couple of times to talk about the school reopenings and didn't want to really rehash a whole bunch. Short version, folks, what are we doing? The schools were open, everything was doing fine. You had your own data that, and from Dr. Spence's own mouth, we confirmed we were not spreaders of COVID. Just as the entire rest of the planet has confirmed with school reopenings. I provided via email back in June the study from Iceland that had genetic contact tracing from their reopening. We know exactly what's happening. They didn't have a special kind of COVID, okay? The kids are not transmitting it to the teachers at a particularly high rate. It's going from adults to kids. That's what we're seeing all over the world. We're not special, okay? We are being laughed at. Our friends over in Chesapeake that have 5 days a week with schools open. I know there's a whole pile of bodies over there from the dead. Oh, wait, no, just kidding. There's not. There's not, because it's not happening. Let's stop with the flat earth nonsense and go with the data that we can see. There have been 1 death in the last 3.5 weeks here in Virginia Beach. Cut it out, guys. Get these kids back in school. You have your own data now to rely on. You don't even have to look elsewhere. I don't care about what people's feelings are. I don't care about what Kelly Walker and the Flat Earth Society's feelings, VBEA's feelings are on the matter. Feelings don't trump data. Let's educate the people that are scared with the reality of what's happening. We're seeing it out there. This has been the best ad for private and parochial schools I've ever seen, because they're doing it fine. I've got a kid in one private school. The mitigations are working fine. Get this kids back in school. I appreciate the work you're doing, but please quit endangering these kids and get them back where they belong. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Next speaker is Jill Williams. Please unmute.
Good evening. I'm a parent who's grateful for the teachers and staff who do not have a choice about going into the building to teach our students. While my family had a choice, many teachers and staff, I understand, really didn't. Educators, know there are more of us willing to stand in for you to make sure your voice will be heard until the district develops a safe and anonymous way for you to share your concerns. Since many people who work for the district are concerned about sharing their thoughts, I'm actually going to read 2 statements that have been prepared by Virginia Beach educators who wish to remain anonymous. Here's the first statement. We all know face-to-face is the best for all of us. We also know there are risks to face-to-face. Where do we draw the line to keep everyone safe? A line was drawn to try to keep everyone safe, so we thought. I know we are all concerned for the education of our students. At this point, we should concern ourselves with our health. No one can guarantee the safety of anyone walking into any building. We are to stay 6 feet apart and wear masks. Well, in reality, we're talking about children. A lot of these children don't wear their masks correctly. They will not even keep their masks on, or they're unable to wear a mask. They may say kids are less likely to spread the virus, but they can spread it. You should know by now this virus has a domino effect. Topple one domino and the others will fall. At school, we do not know who will be the one to start the dominoes falling. We have no control over who other people have been around or where people have been. We would like to think everyone is honest and will stay home if they feel sick, wear their masks, stay 6 feet apart from each other. That doesn't always happen, and that, as somebody who has to work in the building, is scary. There are family members of Virginia Beach employees working in our schools with vulnerable family members at home who may not survive if infected. I am one of those employees. I lived with that fear every time I would walk in. Know the anxiety is so great that my words cannot describe the fear. Having more people going into buildings at this point is taking an unnecessary risk with our educators, staff, students, custodians, administrators, and everyone else who may enter. I feel that losing even one person to the virus that could have been prevented, a virus that has already taken so many, is one too many. Reality is that we will be living with the effects of this virus for possibly many years to come. We don't know the long-term effects of what happens to someone who gets the virus. So even for those who survive, which most do, there are still long-term risks to consider. It is easy to put people out there when you are not the ones on the front lines taking the chances. I would pray you never lose someone you love to this virus. It would be devastating both to the family and everyone around that person. You may have numbers and statistics to give us all day long, but numbers are not going to keep us safe. Knowing we are in the red with the numbers only predicted to go up, I say shame on you for putting anything over the risk of unnecessary exposure. And the second statement, after being sent through the ringer so many times with pivots in our plan and changes to curriculum, schedules, safety protocols, and talent ed, the one thing families and staff all deserve is consistency and safety. Our work environment is toxic and hostile because our lives aren't being protected. The one safety net the division can provide to both families and staff is a promise to stick to the plan. The additional energy we put forth in continually trying to convince the board that our lives and safety should be the priority is crazy. Our district deserves to be recognized for all of its merits, not its shortcomings and hasty decisions that aren't based in science. If we continue to change the plan and place our students and staff in buildings when it's not deemed safe by medical experts, we very well could be the first ones to suffer an avoidable and tragic death. This should be enough motivation to follow the plan and the science, no questions asked. We shouldn't have to walk on eggshells daily, wondering if a member will make a motion to change the plan. We need full support from our senior staff and the board so that we can do our jobs.
Thank
Williams. Our next speaker is Stacy Martin. Please unmute.
Welcome.
Thank you. Good evening. I want to address the mental health issues facing students. I think that a lack of investment in robust virtual education is the real issue. The haphazard plan to have teachers simultaneously teach virtual and in-person students is the problem. Overlaying testing requirements on a once-in-a-lifetime situation is contributing to student stress. A lack of asynchronous options for children who can't manage so much consecutive screen time is an issue. Solving those issues will go a long way in solving the mental health issues for students and staff. Beyond those issues, my son's well-being is not the responsibility of a nanny state. I believe in individual responsibility. Honestly, parents should engage licensed therapists if their children are having mental health issues. They should not expect middle and high school cliques to take the place of professional mental health care. Sending mentally unwell students into high-pressure social cliques is actually the worst thing to do. While the fatality rate of COVID-19 is low, the long-term chronic sequelae of side effects is much higher. And that should be your mission tonight. Reducing transmission to reduce long-term sequelae. Parents in the 1950s didn't know that their children who survived polio we're going to suffer from post-polio syndrome 50 years later. The syndrome was recognized in the late 2000s. Polio survivors who left that childhood trauma behind were taken by surprise when their bodies started failing a few decades later, reducing their quality of life and their lifespan. No, they didn't die as children, but they suffered as older adults and died younger than their peers who had never had polio. It's a lesson we must recognize and apply to our children today. SARS viruses can have a very long tail in adults and children. Longitudinal studies from SARS-CoV-1 show survivors have physical and mental health issues decades later. COVID-19 long-term sequelae is far more of a threat than the fatality rate. COVID-19 sequelae is not something children or adults should have to live with for a lifetime just because you couldn't wait 60 days for community transmission to decrease. I appreciate your time and hope you make decisions that take our children's future quality of life into account. Thank you.
Our next speaker is Annie Earls. Please unmute.
Welcome.
Can you hear me?
Yeah, a little louder would be helpful.
Okay, can you hear me now?
Better.
Hi, my name is Annie Earls, and I'm a mom of 2 girls, a military wife. I was here today to discuss the importance of in-person instruction for special ed kids like my 12-year-old moderate to severe child named Bella who has autism. She is in the CSEP self-contained classroom right now in Virginia Beach Public Schools. First of all, I wanted to thank you so much, board members. Whoever decided to send Bella back to school, I applaud you. If she could communicate on her own, she would today. And she would tell you she was so happy running on that bus to school today. It was so different from the kid I've seen in the last few months. With autism, Bella functions at the behavioral level of a toddler, although she's 12. Imagine asking a toddler to sit at a computer from 10:20 to 4 o'clock in the afternoon. It's impossible for her. It's not only impossible, it's frustrating, and sometimes I feel like it's even cruel. Since being asked to be on virtual instruction, Bella has thrown the computer across the room and has began punching her own face, which has resulted in bruises on her face. At this point, she can only attend for about 10 minutes of her day. So of a 6-hour day, Bella, although her sweet teacher works so hard, has only been able to cover what the weather is like every day. And the rest of the day, the English, the math, none of that she can attend to. Last week, we really only talked about the weather, and it made me so sad. It's just not equitable. Her IEP outlines that she needs individualized education. She needs speech, occupational therapy. She learns with manipulatives that she can touch, which are tactile objects. And her teachers and administrators, although they work so hard, cannot make up for the in-person inequitable deficits that online learning presents. Part of the agenda today is asking the Virginia Beach Public School admins and teachers to sign a petition to stop in-person instruction after 1 day. 1 day for kids who thrive on rhythm and routine. I mean, taking that away at this point is not only unprofessional on your part, but it's so cruel and hard. I know you can't see it from my perspective, but I watched my little girl cry every day. So to the teachers and administrators, I want you to know that you are brave when you walk into school and you teach my kid, because it matters. I know it's a sacrifice, and I know that her daddy's in the military and he goes into work every day and sacrifices no matter what the numbers present him, because it's for the good of humanity. And just think about it. My little Bella is a human too, and she needs to be protected. So special educators, board members, protect these little humans that are, they deserve it. They need you to be the voice for them, and showing up and allowing them to be in school is equitable, and right. And I thank you for the opportunity to let her get on that bus every day. Thank you so much for listening.
Thank you.
Our next speaker is Connor Epley. Please unmute.
Welcome.
Thank you. Good evening, school board members. My name is Connor Epley, and I'm here tonight to talk about the fall reopening plan. I am here tonight specifically to encourage the board to oppose the motion that school board member Victoria Manning has said she plans on making tonight. Ms. Manning wants to, quote, return all option 1 students back to school as they were prior to the recent closure and to change the metrics by which we keep our schools open, end quote. It is my belief that Ms. Manning's motion will pose an unnecessary risk to our students, staff, and community. I also want to express my frustration with some of the rhetoric that I have been hearing from this board, rhetoric that I can only seem to explain as elected officials wanting to further their own political agenda ahead of the needs of our students, staff, and community. And that's disappointing, to put it nicely. You would think that people advocating for students to return face-to-face immediately would also be advocating for as much funding as possible for our schools in order to ensure that we have everything that we need to return to school and also have the flexibility to adapt to the evolving situation that COVID-19 is. Well, I hate to inform you that you'd be wrong. Ms. Manning and Ms. Hughes want to implement school voucher programs, also referred to as school choice. These programs take away funding from our already underfunded schools. But let's say you want to give Ms. Manning and Ms. Hughes the benefit of the doubt and say that they probably don't support these programs during COVID-19 when adequate funding for our schools is vital. Well, you'd be wrong again. Ms. Hughes said recently that, quote, the schools are able to indoctrinate and kind of hold us captive with our tax dollars. Right now, with all of these left-wing superintendents and school boards wanting to shut down, there has never been a golden opportunity like now to push for school choice, end quote. I point this out because I'm really getting sick and tired of seeing this rush to get our students back into school, spearheaded by the same people who are trying to take funding away from our schools. I am also growing increasingly more frustrated with some on this board who want to use the mental health crisis that our youth face and have been facing for years as justification to return students to face-to-face instruction when it's not safe. I agree that the mental health crisis that our students are facing is getting worse as a result of the pandemic. However, simply putting students back into school face-to-face will not magically get rid of the anxiety, depression, and other challenges facing our youth. Students who are dealing with these mental health challenges need more than just returning to face-to-face learning. While returning students to face-to-face learning may help some students who are dealing with these challenges, face-to-face learning is not a replacement for the treatment and support from medical and mental health professionals. Our students who are facing mental health challenges need our support, and we without a doubt need to provide it to them. It is unconscionable, however, and just plain wrong to only talk about their struggles and express your support for these students when it is politically convenient. If you're going to sit here meeting after meeting, Facebook post after Facebook post, and talk about the mental health struggles that our youth face, then I look forward to you continually advocating for these students even after we have a better handle on this pandemic. It is incumbent upon all of us to limit the risk of spreading COVID-19, and for the time being, having school virtual is one of the ways we can do that.
30 seconds.
Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Allison Verbenek is not online. Our next speaker will then be Heather Sipe. Please unmute.
Welcome.
Good evening. Can you hear me?
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you. Good evening. My name is Heather Sipe, and I am the parent of a VBCPS student, a VBCPS educator of 18 years, and a proud member of the Virginia Beach Education Association. This evening, I'm going to speak first as a parent and then as the voice of others who are unable to speak tonight. My decision to choose option 1 for my 8th grade student was not made lightly. My son is a twice exceptional student with an SLD in reading due to dyslexia, and he struggles in the virtual learning setting. His learning needs weighed heavily on my heart as I debated the health and safety of my family, which include my 85-year-old grandparents in declining health who need our assistance, and my son's need for in-person instruction. The plan presented, on which I based my decision, was for 8th graders to receive a combination of virtual and in-person instruction when metrics reached a combination of green and yellow. Had my son been in any other category, I would have chosen option 2. As a parent, I put my trust in the school division to ensure the safety and well-being of my son while he is in school. This included the trust that the plan would be followed as presented to me when I made my choice. As a parent, I was relieved when we returned to all virtual learning when our metrics shifted to red, despite the struggles I knew my son would face. It is my job as his parent to support and supplement his learning at home, and I will continue to do whatever is needed for him. As a parent, I am angry that the trust I put in this division to hold the course based on the plan presented when choices were made has been broken, and that children have already been returned to the building when we have metrics in the red zone. The plan presented to us had all students virtual when metrics are in the red. As a parent, I am in disbelief that there is discussion of returning even more students to the building while we are not only in the red, but numbers are rising. As a parent, I am disappointed that members of the school board, sworn to do what is in the best interest of our children, would move to return students to the school building when health metrics are in the red and getting worse instead of better. It is my hope that the school board will adhere to the plan presented to parents when the choice was made and not further break the trust of the students and families they serve. This leads me to the concern of other VBCPS parents and staff members have expressed and asked me to share. It is dismissive of students and teachers' health and safety to send teachers and students back to school when the metrics are going up. The rise in cases should be a deterrent for putting students and staff in a situation that raises the likelihood of anyone getting COVID-19. The health metrics are color-coded for a reason. Red is not safe for anyone. It is naive to believe there is no transmission in schools. The 48-hour contact tracing is insufficient and skews the data. Individuals can be asymptomatic carriers for a week before showing symptoms leading to them getting tested. The division also relies on individuals reporting a positive test result to the school. Without mandatory reporting from health officials, there is no way to know how many cases are not reported to the schools. The metrics are designed to demonstrate a level of safety in face-to-face instruction. SPED students, their families, and their teachers deserve the same safety measures as all other students and employees. SPED teachers work tirelessly day in and day out and are now expected to return in this unsafe environment. Many of these SPED students are the most fragile students and they should not be treated as guinea pigs. The red metrics are safe. Thank you.
Thank you.
Our next speaker is Savannah Morgret. Please unmute.
Hi there, can you hear me?
Yes, welcome.
Thank you very much. I am glad that you would have me today speak. I actually didn't even plan on, I didn't even know there was a board meeting today until I, in frustration, looked up an option to see what our options could be because virtual schooling is not going well for our family. We're a military family and we're new to the area. We don't have any support here whatsoever. And I've got a kindergartner and a second grader in VB public schools, which we were so excited for when we moved here from Pensacola because of how wonderful the system is. Anyways, you guys have heard all the statistics, you know, you've heard all about metrics and all this. I just wanted to kind of put you guys in our shoes from my perspective with 2 young elementary students and a toddler. So I'm just going to run through what a day in the life is like with virtual schooling. So we wake up and we start our first Google Meet at 8:40. That's when my kindergartner has to get on. So of course I have to help her log on. And then at 9 o'clock, my second grader logs on. And then at 9:20, my kindergartner has to do art. So then we have to switch. Of course, she needs help switching. And while I'm trying to switch her over, my second grader probably needs help because her computer's glitching. And then by 9:50, my kindergartner is doing independent work for the next 2 hours. Well, when she's doing independent work, she's having to sift through, all of the different platforms that need to be used, Seesaw, Redbird, ClassLink, all these things that a kindergartner just does not know how to use. Okay, so we're constantly supervising, which is fine. I'm her mother. That's what I'm supposed to do. I'm very fortunate that I have the ability to stay home and be here with my kids. However, it is a whole lot to deal with, and it's very stressful. Anyways, so we then go to the next Google meeting for my second grader at 10:30, and at 10:50 she has to switch over to art, and by 12:10 then I have to get on another Google meeting to do guided reading for my kindergartner, and at the same time my second grader also needs to switch over to a different Google meeting, and then at 12:30 my kindergartner's back to independent work. So again, we're sitting there trying to figure this out. Now, keep in mind, and I'm not the only one going through this, and I realize that, but I have no other support here. I'm doing this by myself. My husband is gone all the time, and I have a 20-month-old son. So we're also dealing with toddler stuff. And it's incredibly frustrating. I'm not going to go through the rest of the schedule, but basically this whole process that I just described continues until 3:30. It's hard to explain my frustration because I know you guys have already heard it, so I'm not even going to bore you with that. But my second grader's on the computer for almost 4.5 hours a day. Most of that time, I'm helping her navigate it. She cries because she can't hear her teacher, so she can't complete her work. There's constant noise, and I have to pause to say her teacher, my daughter's second grade teacher and my daughter's kindergarten teacher, they are incredible. I am so grateful for them. But this is hard mentally for the kids, just trying to figure out how to get this stuff done, and it's really taking a toll on our home life for me, and I'm not a weak person. So I just want you guys to thank you. I just want you guys to keep in mind the mental toll that it's taking on family.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Our next speaker is Joyce Frances. Please unmute.
Welcome.
Thank you. Good evening, Superintendent Spence, Chairwoman Rye, and school board members. My name is Joyce Franzese, and I'm an elementary ESL teacher and a current board member of the VBEA. I am speaking tonight for another educator in our division who wrote a speech but wishes to remain anonymous. These are her words. We recently shifted to virtual learning for all students because we went into the red due to the fall 2020 plan with its health metrics. This was voted upon and put into place in July. Many educators, employees, and parents spoke to this board in August and asked for these metrics to be changed to keep the employees and students safer. We were dismissed and told that the plan was set, it had been presented to parents, and that they chose their options based on that plan. Yet here we are today with a board member saying that it is okay to ignore those metrics and that we should open our buildings because she believes mental health is more important than anyone's actual physical health. How is this okay? On November 22nd, Ms. Manning posted a study on her public forum from the JAMA network, and she argued that life expectancy in correlation with the students was in correlation with students missing school, which was mentioned in the abstract and conclusion of this article. Any data scientist can tell you that correlation does not mean causation. This article focuses on a teacher strike in Argentina and then combines US Census data. First and foremost, the society in Argentina is vastly different than society in the United States. Also, this was a localized school closure and not due to a global pandemic. And most importantly, the students here received no virtual instruction during that time. This article was meant to raise more questions for further review and even listed 6 limitations that it had. The circumstances in this study simply do not align with what we are doing right now, and it should not be used as a tool to ask for a vote to reopen our buildings. The CDC currently has us listed as critical with an outbreak being imminent. If we're looking at studies, let's consider an academic article released by Princeton on September 30th, which studied 500,000 people currently going through COVID-19. This study was done by Johns Hopkins, Princeton, and the University of California. The study found children and young adults are a large part of transmitting COVID-19. Statements have been made saying that none of our school cases are a result of transmission in the schools. It is wrong for you to say that there is no transmission in our schools. The current contract tracing that is done is very selective and inadequate. It only follows a 48-hour timeline. Data released on the coronavirus progression does not support a 48-hour timeline. It has simply been put in place here to serve your own narrative. We urge you all to vote to keep our buildings closed during these unsafe times. School is in session and learning is continuing. Teachers and students are working harder than ever. This doesn't stop just because our buildings are closed. Thank you.